Okay, good evening. We have a special session right now, and I will call that to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Here.
Councilmember Leger? Here. Councilmember Yates?
Present.
Vice Mayor DePorter. Here. And Mayor, we have Councilmember Magazine, Hanson, and Brown absent.
All right. First is discussion with possible direction to staff regarding the Fountain Lake water quality. Grady, you going to start it?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, tonight we have a special session on the water quality of the Fountain Lake. As you're aware, this past spring, late spring, and most of the summer, we've had some ongoing issues with odor issues related to primarily the algae that's in the lake. Tonight you're going to hear from some experts in their respective fields on some of the findings that they have and recommendations on what they recommend to take action on addressing the odor issues and water quality. As you know, the lake is also used for irrigating the grass that we have at the park, and the water that goes into Fountain Lake is actually from the Fountain Hills Sanitary District. So the lake acts as a reservoir, and that water's held there before it irrigates the grass and the shrubs and landscaping. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Community Services Director Mark Mayer, who will then give a little bit of a briefing and then turn it over to the individual consultants who are here to brief the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. As the town manager indicated, we've had a difficult year, and I know it's been challenging for you because you hear from your constituents. In the past, this is my 15th anniversary coming up, so we've been dealing with, as long as I've been here, these kinds of issues. In the past, we've had success. We've been able to institute, with the help of some of these people sitting here this evening, some remedial measures that in the past have been effective. They include the introduction of koi fish. They include the extra running in the fountains, especially at night, to keep the water stirred and oxygen throughout the water column. And then lastly, but not least, the introduction of algicide where and when needed. In the past, we've been able to, in some years, get by with no algae treatments. And the most I can recall is 2 in the past, in the 15 years. This summer, we're up to 5 additional treatments, and we're running the fountain, as you well know, even longer than we have ever in the past. And we've still had significant issues with the water quality and the odor. So clearly we need some new things, some new methods, and that's why we're here tonight, to bring in the experts. Let me introduce them kind of one at a time. And I did want to apologize for the lateness of some of the reports getting to you. We didn't initially plan on including the information on the controls and for the electrical system, but we were asked to do that, so we did include them in the packet. And again, we apologize for getting that to you so late. The report from Mr. Coates, who will talk about it, it's actually a revised edition based on the fact that we've increased significantly the amount of water that we're using on the lake, and you can see from the lake, and you can see the benefits with the green grass. What that does is basically push the salt, which is one of the issues that we deal with because of effluent water, pushes it down below the roots, and it's allowed the grass to really green up. It's the best, I think, that I've seen it in the 15 years I've been here at this point. Usually by now it's pretty well stressed with the heat over the summer. So a couple other points I want to make. Like I said, this year was especially difficult despite the run times. We actually did an analysis of the amount of runtime that we were able to log onto the pumps this year versus last year, and surprisingly enough, it's almost exactly the same. What that basically means is all those additional runtimes that we tried, because of the wind that we've had this spring, it hasn't been effective. It hasn't allowed us to run the fountain like we really want to. There are certain periods of times for hours at a time when it should be running that it hasn't been running. So again, that we've got to find some new methods, so that's why we're here tonight. What really brought this on was a number of months ago, the sanitary district, Ron Huber, approached us and said, would the town be interested in considering taking effluent water directly from the treatment plant instead of from the lake? What that basically does, the lake now sits there and we have very little turnover. The only turnover we have in the lake comes from the irrigation water that we use and in evaporation, and new water coming in to replace what is evaporated. In the past, it was used at a distribution point for the various golf courses in town, so there's a great deal more turnover. So that doesn't occur anymore. They're now taking their water directly from the treatment plant. So we're getting less turnover than we used to, which has exacerbated some of the problems. There's a feasibility study done by Mr. Coates that's included in there. There's also some information, again, by each of these individuals who I'll introduce here in just a second. As I indicated, we basically are looking for some direction tonight. We've got some thoughts on, there is money in the budget for this year for aeration purposes, and that's also an item that's going to be covered under Mr. Amalfi's report. We think that's achievable. We also think the other costs that are associated with these extra steps are probably going to require some phasing because of the dollar cost of some of those, and those will be reviewed for you in a few seconds. I also want to talk about, just briefly, that we've got people that are representing not only water quality issues, but also control systems. Variable frequency drives, which is certainly technology that's developed in the last few years. It provides us some opportunities for adjusting the level of the fountain when it runs, so that we can, in essence, beat the sensor for the amount. Because right now, the fountains are either on or they're off. There's no in between. The variable frequency drive will allow us to adjust given the wind conditions on any specific day. So literally, we could run the fountain 24 hours a day regardless of the wind. We don't have that capability right now. Let me introduce the gentleman. As the town manager indicated, these are considered experts in their field, and we have very much appreciated their efforts in bringing this information forward. First of all, Dr. Rick Amalfi. He is the owner of Aquatic Consulting Incorporated. We have used Dr. Amalfi for a number of years for water quality analysis. Most of the measures that we're taking out there now, such as the aeration at night, I should say the aeration that we're doing now, the running of the fountain at night, the introduction of koi fish, and the running of and the treatment of algicide have all come from recommendations of Dr. Amalfi. Secondly will be Mr. Galen Coates. He is owner of Coates Irrigation. Mr. Coates is the designer of the irrigation system that we have in the park now. Mr. Patrick Kelly is a professional engineer with Quantum Integrated Solutions. They work a great deal with the sanitary district. Last but not least is Mr. Kevin Baker, who is a senior electrical engineer with Keller Electric. They were the original designers of the electrical controls that we have in there now. Those are the original equipment that were installed. The last thing I want to mention before I turn it over to Dr. Amalfi is, I mentioned earlier we do have dollars within the budget, and both Rick and I are of the opinion that we need to move forward with this fiscal year, put the aeration system in, because we think we'll get some immediate relief, and he'll go into a little bit of detail on that. But we do have in excess of $200,000. His estimated costs, his costs are significantly less than that. And we're looking at the breakdown between that $205,000 of $25,000 for design and $180,000 for construction. I did also want to mention to you that there are additional costs, obviously, with running the fountain that aren't in this particular report. So if there are questions on that, such as the lake liner and the motors and repairs of those, I have that information with me as well this evening. So with that, as each of them concludes their remarks, please feel free to ask any questions that you might have, and then we will do, again, a Q&A at the end. Thank you. Dr. Amalfi.
Mayor and council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening, or early evening. I hope to explain some of the things that are going on with the lake and how the irrigation system is impacting these events and these conditions. In the past, reclaimed wastewater from the sanitary district was added to Fountain Lake, and the lake was used as basically the reservoir for the irrigation water, and it was pumped to the park and to the golf courses. One of the old problems, and the continuing problem, is that reclaimed wastewater contains high concentrations of of nitrogen and phosphorus. And just like grass likes nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizer, if you think about your bag of fertilizer, it's NPK, 610. It's nitrogen and phosphorus are the first two numbers. So reclaimed wastewater has a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus, and what that does is make a lake develop a lot of algae, especially here in the desert with warm temperatures and lots of sunshine. So we have what we call a productive lake, lots of algae growth. The other problem is lake water evaporates. And when it evaporates, it concentrates these chemicals and causes the following problems when you're trying to use that water to irrigate. High salinity. So the minerals in there cause salinity issues, toxicity to the grass and the plants. You have scaling of pipes, just like our faucets in our house. If you don't have a water softener, you get scale buildup. And biological fouling. When reclaimed water is put in a lake, and there's a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus, algae grows, and a whole chain of biology occurs in there, and you get all these organisms growing in there. They get fed into the irrigation system, and these organisms love to attach to things in pipes. And here's a few photos of some of the things you have. The one on the far left, there you have a pipe full of scale. In the center, what happens to turf when you have high salinity, high mineral content of the water? It burns out the blades of grass. To the far right, you can have things like clams and snails start developing in because there's plenty of food for them. And the lower one in the center is my favorite, that green mossy looking stuff, our bryozoa. They're actually, it looks like it should be a plant, but it actually is an animal. It's kind of like a miniature sea anemone, only it's fresh water. It's microscopic, they bud, they grow colonies, and they love to attach to screens and emitters. That's actually an irrigation head, sprinkler head, that has holes in it about this, you could probably put a pencil through. And it clogged those. That was 3 days growth on a golf course in Las Vegas.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Although you are showing this, these are not actual pictures of our existing. Thank you.
These are not actually pictures of here, no.
Thank you.
We're not
For
a golf
example.
course.
So, right now we're looking at the sanitary district delivering water directly into the irrigation system versus putting it in the lake. So what benefits are there of doing that? Going directly from the treatment plant to the irrigation system and bypassing the lake. So I looked at a number of factors in a study I did. We looked at infiltration. That means how well does the water go in the soil. Well, there wasn't much difference. No restriction. The lake water was percolating pretty well through the soil, and so would the new advanced wastewater treatment water. They're using ultrafiltration. But when we started looking at some of the mineral concentrations, it changed significantly. Calcium, which is the main component of scale, calcium carbonate, the lake is at 201 milligrams per liter. The AWT effluent, that new effluent that's being produced, that's going to go into the irrigation system directly, is only at 85. Significant improvement. Total dissolved solids. These are the salts, the salinity issues that burn the turf. The lake, 3,300. The effluent directly will bring it down to 1,200. Significant improvement. Sodium and chloride, the same thing. You're seeing about 60-70% lower numbers, which is good. This is like golf score. The lower the number, the better. Okay? So the AWT effluent is much better going directly into the irrigation system. And biologically, well, rather than having the water be in a lake and sitting there and growing things, it's in a pipe going right to the sprinklers and out. So you don't have the biological fouling issues. So as far as irrigation practices for your big users, which are the golf courses, direct reuse is a plus. It's going to improve things.
Excuse me, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So in relation to other wastewater treatment facilities, like the one they have in Scottsdale, I know you said that the AWT is better, but how does that stack up to, if you know the answer, to other treatment facilities? I mean, I know it's better than just going right into the lake, but how good is it? It's better, but how good? Do you
It
understand?
just so happens this next slide.
Okay,
My world is always, what does the lake look like and how does the lake function?
okay,
And usually my thing with irrigation systems is helping Galen keep them from getting plugged up, okay? It stacks up on about the same par in my world, which is the AWT is actually better water than a lot of these other places have. So
Okay.
the average wastewater, reclaimed water that are going to lakes, this is superior water. It has less salts, has less calcium in it, all those things I was showing. This is pretty darn good reclaimed water. But unfortunately, the one thing ultrafiltration does not do, it doesn't significantly lower the nitrogen and phosphorus concentrations. So what I did is made this table and said, okay, if I were to have a lake and I wanted to have water go to it, how much nitrogen and phosphorus would I be happy with in that lake? Well, ideally, I'd like 0.03 milligrams per liter of phosphorus and 0.30 milligrams per liter nitrogen. That would give me a lake that would have some biology in there. You don't want it sterile. It would have a moderate amount of algae. It looked like kind of like you picture a lake in Minnesota with, you know, nice lake.
okay.
What do we have with the AWT effluent? We have 100 times the phosphorus that we want, and we have 10 times the nitrogen. So whereas it lowered the TDS, the mineral content down, and the calcium and the chloride and all those great things, unfortunately it doesn't lower the nitrogen and phosphorus where we'd anywhere close to where we'd like it. That would take even more advanced. They would probably have to go to reverse osmosis to do that. Really big dollars. So what does that mean to the lake now? If water is going directly to the irrigation system for the golf courses, which are your major user of the irrigation water that used to come from the lake, what would happen? Well, the first thing is the detention time in the lake increases. What do I mean there? How long the water stays, when a drop of water goes in, how long does it take before that drop of water is pulled out? Well, if you take away all the golf course irrigation from the lake, it's going to nearly double. So where the lake water used to stay in about a year, it's going to stay in 2 years. What that also means too now is the nutrients and the minerals may actually increase because now you're not having loss by water pulled out of the lake. The only, well, except for local park irrigation, the only way you're losing water is through evaporation. When you evaporate, the minerals and the nutrients stay behind. So the downside there is longer time, the water becomes more stagnant, and the minerals and nutrients could start accumulating. That could lead to more algae blooms, more nutrients. Algae will be happy. People always criticize me for saying happy, but they will be happy if they could be happy. But they'll be using the nutrients to grow. And will produce more algae, which produces more sludge, because algae only lives a few days. Then it dies and goes down to the bottom of the lake and settles. That's what makes the muck down at the bottom. Unfortunately, what the muck becomes is the stink. That's where the odors are coming from. It's the hydrogen sulfides, the decomposition of the organic matter at the bottom of the lake, that when it gets into the water column, or is pulled into the fountain and thrown up into the air, it doesn't smell very good. So what can we do to mitigate what's going to happen with direct reuse? Clearly, it's a better way to irrigate them. Golf courses will be thrilled to have that water come directly to them. But what about the poor lake? The first thing is mechanical aeration, circulation, and possibly direct oxygenation. That's number one, and I'll talk a little bit more about that next. The other things are using algicides, as we've done in the past, putting algicide in maybe more frequently. And most of the algicides are copper-based products, and there's different types based on what algae happens to be growing at a given time. Alum is a flocculant. There are other products available. They actually bind to phosphorus and drop it out of the water. We would have to look and see if that was cost effective because of the amount of phosphorus going in. It may or may not be. And peroxide products. This is an oxidizer. You can use it, doesn't bother fish, works really well. That can not only kill algae, but also destroys odors very, very quickly. And that's what we've done this year. We've peroxided around the intake of the fountain when complaints started. And that worked for a number of days, but it's not the main solution. Another possibility is there are lake dyes. Lake dyes are pretty benign. Most people think we're coloring the water. We're not. We're trying to absorb the wavelengths of sunlight that algae use to photosynthesize and to grow. So the dyes you see in some of these lakes, especially the ones that kind of don't look exactly blue, look a little more teal, that's because they have two different dyes in there to absorb two wavelengths of light that the algae use to grow. So that's a possibility. And it might be a more effective, a more cost-effective possibility than ever before because we're not pumping as much water out of the lake. Because if you put the dye in and you pump it all out for irrigation, you threw your money away. But if the water is leaving the lake more slowly, then the dye can stay around longer and we might get some effect out of it. And finally, utility fish. Mark talked about putting koi in there. We use grass carp. We can use sunfish to eat snails and clams. You can use goldfish to eat midge fly. Those are the gnats that come out at night, live around and hang under the lights. So we would do that. But the main thing I really want to talk to you about is mechanical aeration and circulation. Basically, this is putting two things in the lake. Diffusers, bottom diffusers, they're membranes that a compressor on the shoreline through weighted hoses blows air in through that hose to these diffusers, and these bubbles come up in the water. People go, well, how much oxygen do you get out of those bubbles into the water? Not much. We're not trying to put oxygen in, we're trying to move water in a vertical circulating pattern so that it can go to the surface, grab oxygen out of the air, and go back down. And just keep doing that in a circular pattern. That helps the lake tremendously. The other one is horizontal circulators. This year, it hasn't happened too much, but in the past, you recall when we got what I call the green paint down at the north end, that the algae got so thick it looked like somebody poured in bright green paint. Mm-hmm. Stagnant areas downwind. These water movers would move currents out away from the shoreline so that didn't happen anymore. So the combination of the two would give both a vertical and a horizontal circulation. And probably the biggest goal would be use the fountain for the aesthetic purpose it was put in there. You don't want to be running the fountain in the middle of the night.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of money for power that really, these are all these pieces of equipment are very low power users.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
For the size of our lake and how much water is in there, do you know how many of these would be a good number that we would need?
We actually have that in the report right off the top.
Okay.
It's been a while since
But
I
it's
did it.
in the
I can't
report?
remember how much. I think it might be something like 24 diffusers,
Okay,
and I believe there were 10 horizontal water movers.
okay.
And we have been discussing placement. We think what we might have, and I think Galen will talk about this a little bit too, we may move some of them around because this year our issues have been in the bay where the pumps take in the water. That's where the odors are coming. So we might want to reassess position of those things so that we highly mix the water where the pumps are drawing it in. Because if we can keep that well aerated and oxygenated, then we shouldn't get the odors coming out of the fountain.
Okay, and would all of these have to be on at once? Is that how it works?
These are usually 24/7.
All of them, okay.
The compressors, depending on, and again, we'll have to look at numbers, but some of these compressors are like 3/4 horse or 1 horse compressors. They're very small,
They're small.
very low power users. They run nonstop usually for a year. After a year, there's actually a kind of a replacement part kit, $150 to $200. You kind of you do all the replacement parts in there, and they're the wear parts, and you're good to go. Or again, balancing costs, we may look at a blower, one large unit that can power more, whichever works. I think whichever one's more cost effective. So those options are there.
Okay, thank you.
But I did want to go through the benefits of the aeration and circulation. It's going to give you oxygen because it's going to move the water, let it the oxygen poor water at the bottom of the lake is going to move to the top, grab oxygen, get moved down, and that's going to allow for decomposition of the organic matter on the bottom. That's what we want to do. We want to get rid of that anaerobic, stinky stuff on the bottom of the lake so it doesn't produce odors. It will prevent an oxygen poor cold water zone in the deeper water because it's going to mix it all. It's all going to be the same temperature, and hopefully, if they're working properly, it should be the same amount of oxygen from top to the bottom. And when I do my reports and I do my graphs, they should be 2 lines. Temperature should be the same every depth, and the oxygen should be the same every depth. No decrease as we get deeper. Some of the things like hydrogen sulfide, the kind of the rotten egg smell, that's going to get volatilized by the extra mechanical aeration. It also will prevent surface blooms of algae because it's going to vertically mix water and it's driving the algae up and down in the water column so it doesn't all accumulate on the surface. It'll reduce cases of fish kills. We've been fortunate. We really haven't had a fish kill, but it will reduce that possibility. And it will increase the oxidation of organic molecules. That's the big thing here that does the odor formation here. So the bottom line is mix, 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 move the water under this scenario. I think you could have the best of 2 worlds with investment in circulation and aeration. There's some innovative technologies we've looked at that might even enhance it, but we're trying to get the data before we make a decision on it. But I think in this case, with these mitigation measures, you get the best of the 2 worlds being you have better irrigation water going to your golf courses that are the big users, and I think we can make the lake get in better shape with some of these upgrades.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councilman Yates?
Thank you. Thank you very much for this. So bottom line, you say better. Can you quantify it a little bit better than that?
Well, better certainly would be, I'd like to be able to not have, I'm never going to make the lake have clarity down 5 feet deep. You aren't going to see the fishes swimming around. That's not going to happen. It's reclaimed water, and it has high nutrient content. So what we have to do is get realistic in our expectations. And I always tell my clients, my goal is if I can get clarity to about 3 feet, I'd be thrilled in a reclaimed water lake. If I could stop algae from producing any kind of surface scum or layer or accumulation, that would be good. If I could not have any odors whatsoever, that would also be
That would be good.
A goal. And to have the fish be able to live so they can do, I call them utility fish because I put them in there to do work. I put the white amur in there to eat weeds and plants that grow in the lake. You put the goldfish in to eat the midge larvae so you don't have gnats spawning all over the place. Put sunfish in to eat clams and snails so they don't plug up irrigation intakes. These are all utility fish. So those are all my goals in the reclaimed water lake, and I think people have to kind of adjust to it. We're in the desert. It's hot. There's lots of sunshine, and I always tell people, think about your swimming pool. What would happen in your swimming pool? We have no filter in the lake, so unplug your swimming pool filter. You know, we don't put chlorine in there. We have no chlorination, although we can use some chemicals. But we'll unplug the filter. It's still out in the air, and then every day we'll go out and put a cupful of fertilizer in. How green would your swimming pool be in a matter of days? That's what we have at Fountain Lake. So yes, we have chlorine, because we have fish, we can't put chlorine in there, we use algicides. And then we mix the water, and we do all these other things to try to make it as good as we can. I mean, it's a great beneficial reuse of the wastewater, to put it in the lake and have the public enjoy the fountain in the area around the lake. But we have to be realistic. It is never going to look like Lake Tahoe. There's probably not enough money to ever do that. So, but certainly the public shouldn't have to be exposed to odors and to nasty looking water. And that's really the goal. If we can get it looking nice, it's going to be green, but it should be pleasant looking. And if we use dye, I can make it look blue.
One last question. Lately we hear all about mosquitoes, and everybody's starting to get very nervous about mosquitoes traveling up here. With the lake the way it is now, being so still and not quite aerated the way it should be, can that breed the mosquitoes?
Highly unlikely.
Okay.
Mosquitoes like shallow water. It's not shallow. They like vegetative cover all around, like if they go in the shallow water where there's vegetation or rock structure, kind of hide them.
That's good to know.
We don't have it. They like sloped banks. We have
Okay.
pretty sharp banks. And fourth one is, they don't like fish.
Well, that's good to know.
Because mosquitoes hang from the surface of the water to get their oxygen. They have a siphon. They go up to the top. They hang there, and they're taking in oxygen. Easy pickings for minnows and gambusia.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's one of the questions that a lot of people were concerned about.
A lot of people do that, and actually large bodies of water, especially deep water, they don't like the motion of the waves and the currents. They want shallow, stagnant, still, covered water, and a lake is far from that.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Councilman Leger.
Thank you, Mayor. Doctor, thank you for the presentation. If my takeaways are the phosphorus and nitrogen are your main culprits, is that correct?
They are.
Okay. Now, the aeration will address which one of those?
The aeration will allow any of the phosphorus that goes in the lake and ends up being in the algae cells, and they die and they settle to the lake bottom. Having an oxygenated water column with the aeration will prevent any of that phosphorus from coming out.
Okay.
Phosphorus comes out when there is anaerobic, no oxygen.
Sure.
And so that is one of the goals of having vertical
Okay.
circulation, is to keep the phosphorus in place. It does not directly, it's not going to make it go away. It's maintain it. So these are all mitigation. These are all, what can we do to kind of cancel the effect of having the nitrogen and phosphorus in the lake? The only direct thing we could try to remove would be phosphorus using chemicals. You can chemically flocculate phosphates.
Phosphorus.
You can use, there are some clay particle formulations. There's aluminum sulfate binds phosphorus. Phosphorus can be bound and taken out. The problem with the reclaimed water system is if you go in there and we take it and drop it out, as soon as we put fill water in, we add more. That usually works in places where phosphates are coming in through, let's say, runoff. So you have a big storm event, phosphorus goes in there, you put the chemical in it, you precipitate it out, and the lakes recover.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the aeration will deal with the phosphorus, or
At least one aspect.
Enhance,
Of the phosphorus. It's
yeah.
not going to make it go away, but it is going to at least it's going to prevent it from accumulating at even greater speed.
it'll minimize. Yeah. And how about on the nitrogen side? Is that only dealt with through chemicals?
Nitrogen is almost impossible to remove, because if you remove all the nitrogen, the algae that starts growing all of a sudden will become nitrogen fixers.
Okay.
Will show up, and that means they can use atmospheric nitrogen in place of dissolved nitrogen. So usually when we talk about lake management, we concentrate on the phosphorus, because that's something we can do something about.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Would there be similar mitigation efforts needed if it was a completely different water source? Like, what if we were somehow able to afford fresh water in there? You'd still have to move it around, sure.
Tap
it would still fall under the same environmental issues, but would it come with a lot less? What kind of issues would that come with? It's expensive.
It
Yeah.
could have all the same issues, but to a much lesser degree, and it would take much longer to develop.
Okay.
And I do. I have clients that have, well water,
Sure.
and their lakes stay very, very nice. Do they never have a problem? No. They have occasional problems.
Sure. You'd still.
Versus reclaimed water lakes, and this year was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible for just about all my clients that have reclaimed water lakes. They all suffered some algae bloom or odor issues. I had one client in Chandler that they just had such bad algae blooms that it was awful. And then we got to the point where we couldn't treat enough because we killed the fish. It was another odor issue. So.
So we would still require the same, you'd still recommend the same aeration and circulation
We-
mock-up if for some reason we would.
Again, it wouldn't be as elaborate as this.
Sure.
It wouldn't be as many diffuser heads. It wouldn't be pumping in as much air. It wouldn't have as many horizontal circulators.
Sure.
But these currently are the tools we have that would really help. And the goal here is, for me, is saying that the fountain shouldn't be used as a lake management tool. It's a decorative fountain. And let's try to get it back to that and save that energy costs and the wear and tear on those pumps, and put it into some smaller things that will give us some very specific benefits, and we can even move these. Nothing's hard plumbed in. These all have weighted hoses, so you can move these. The horizontal ones will probably be hardwired, but the aeration system, we can determine we're having a greater issue another year, and we can move them. So.
I know we're in a different situation than like a Tempe Town Lake, but when I look down there and I see the paddle boards, the electric boats, probably something that's way in the distance for someone like us because you have the fountain safety issues, but our Town Vision Plan has use of the lake. There's piers, there's docks, there's boating. You would never be able to do anything like that on reclaimed water, no matter what you did to it, correct?
Doctor, if I could you go back?
sorry.
We're taping this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, probably the state would have issue with swimming.
In any reclaimed
any
anything.
reclaimed water.
Got it. And with no swimming, it would just be more, and I know Tempe Town Lake has a flow, totally different setup, and they're not allowed to swim in there either.
Only
except
for
that one
special
event.
for
Right.
special events you can swim,
Yeah.
but you can paddle board and do those kind of things.
That's why I like to see our lake just
But that's
usable.
essentially SRP canal water is
Right.
what's going in Tempe Town Lake.
My thoughts are to have the water at a place, and that's why I mentioned the fresh water. I feel like this is all excellent mitigation efforts. I think maybe I would love to brainstorm the idea of maybe a different water source, potentially. Easier said than done, I'm sure, and very expensive. But that's a huge attraction for us. We're down there all the time. Being able to leverage that a little bit more and develop it out would be pretty cool. So just some thoughts I have.
Councilman Yates.
Doctor, again, thank you for this information. Do you have a preference on diffusers or the horizontal?
Well, actually, what we did is we came up with, and this was about a year and a half ago, we came up with a plan and put the positions of, I believe, something like 24 diffusers as well as 10 horizontal mover.
Okay.
So that was the package.
In your opinion, that's the sweet spot of
That would do it.
ratio?
Again, we might adjust position a little bit.
Okay.
Because of what happened this summer.
Mayor,
Okay.
I had a question, thank
Okay.
you. Mark, question for you.
All right, thank you, Doctor. Stay with us.
Yeah, don't leave.
Mark, seeing that we're discussing the aerator system, how many aerators do we currently have in the lake?
We have 12.
We have 12. And what type of shape are those in? Are those going to require repair, rebuilding, or anything of that nature?
Actually, we've done some repair work on them. We had a number of them that weren't working earlier this year. for a variety of reasons. Some of them were broken. We've also had issues with the disc golf folks. When they lose their disc in the water because the discs are very expensive, they've been throwing out these devices that are designed to rake the bottom, and they've been catching the hoses. And we've even had some that were completely pulled up and non-functioning left on shore. So we've had a number of those that we've had to fix, and that tends to be fairly expensive. So the system is in pretty good repair now, but some of the motors that actually, the compressors themselves, are fairly old. So this would be basically a brand-new system with significantly more capacity than we have now.
So we're replacing the existing ones or repairing those?
We'd be replacing the existing ones.
So at the end of the day, how many aerators would we have in the lake?
I believe you said 24.
24? Okay, very good. And the cost you mentioned earlier it brings us down about under that $200,000?
Yes, his estimate was $125,000 for
Okay.
the equipment.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this has been a capital project that's been in our budget for probably the last 4 years. Is that correct?
I believe it's multiple years. I couldn't tell you if it was 2 to
Okay.
4.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we have 2 other presentations, so did you want to
One more quick question,
make a quick,
if I may. Thank you.
run out of time?
Mark, when this first started coming up in the spring, we were asking some questions amongst the staff. And the way it used to be, we were getting reclaimed water from sanitary and then pushing water out to the golf courses, and now they're just bypassing us. Is that correct?
Correct. We were a distribution point, and now we are the end point.
Could you elaborate on why and how and what was decided that we did that? Because obviously turning the water over faster, even on an annual basis, would have been better than what we're doing now.
Sure. I can't really speak to it other than to say that was the result of a decision. I would guess it was made at the sanitary district level. To my knowledge, the town wasn't involved in that decision.
Okay,
I certainly
Okay.
wasn't.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
all right. Are we going to do irrigation next, or presentation by irrigation? Coates Irrigation.
Mayor and council members, it's nice to be with you. I'm trying to find my place here.
And could you just identify yourself for the,
I'm Galen
Audience?
Coates.
Galen Coates.
Coates Irrigation Consultants. We were involved, as was alluded to, the last park irrigation system and pump station renovation, which I have forgotten how many years? 6. Seems longer, but anyway. So we're familiar with your lake, your condition, and we always enjoy working with Dr. Amalfi and listening to his wonderful expletives and his yarns. We really enjoy it. I'm going to see if this works. Oh, thank you. At Coates Irrigation, we have done a great deal of work through the years. And give me just a second here. We were asked to specifically look at different alternatives to separate the lake water for the irrigation system. And so we've looked at alternatives of how to do that. We revised our report when we found out that the quantity of water that was needed for the park turf had increased from some 300,000+ gallons a day to over 600,000. So we had to revise the way we were able to store or be able to house the water. So we looked at different alternatives which we have used in a number of different cases. One is a simple steel tank that's above ground, which would have to be put inside the enclosure where the pump station and the forebay is over there on the west side. That enclosure would have to house something. If it was 24 feet tall, it would have to have a 77-foot footprint. As we go higher, the footprint decreases. So this is one method which can be done to separate the water by bringing in the filtered water into the tank directly.
right,
Because the filtered water that comes from the treatment plant has only 2 psi, it has to be pumped up over into the tank, so there'd have to be a little small booster pump to get the water up into the tank to make it function. So that would be in that fenced area. There'd have to be a booster pump, as I mentioned, and power to be able to operate the pump, and a pump station. Currently, the pump station is inside the same enclosure as the lake pumps, the fountain pumps, rather, excuse me, the fountain pumps. And it was carefully designed and put in place there a few years back. That pump station is specifically designed to lift water out of the forebay below it, the same place where the lake fountain pumps pump out of. And so the pump station that would be for a steel tank would be a centrifugal type, which we'd have to duplicate and get another type of pump station to send this water into the current irrigation system. With that in mind, here's some of the costs that would be associated, from the cost of the tank to grading, to a centrifugal pump to place it, to a booster pump, to piping, etc. Next type of enclosure could be a vault below ground, concrete in place, which would be in the same footprint area, which would be west of the current forebay area. There would have to be some very creative grading there because the retainer wall it's high on the park side, not as high on the inside, but that could be accomplished. We've done these type of vaults, and what you do is you pump right off the top of the vault with a pump station up on the very top. This would be covered with earth, okay, and the pump station would actually set on top of it. That would mean that we could actually take the pump station out of the current configuration inside of the enclosure where the fountain pumps are and try to reuse it by lengthening its shafts. These are some of the items that we, wait a minute, I went backwards, didn't I? Okay, and here are the costs associated with the concrete below grade. As you can see, significantly more because it has to be built in place. Next concept would be outside of the wall in the park area, just west of the wall of that enclosure I'm talking about. And that turf landscaped area there, you could put below ground tanks. And these tanks come in 50,000 gallon sizes. It would take as many as 16 of those. And there you could fill those tanks with that water, and we would need to have at least 800,000 gallons of water to be able to have enough storage to do 600,000 gallons a day, which is what we were told is being used for either overseed or for park irrigation presently. And those are the associated costs with that concept. Here's the forebay that I'm talking about. And that Dr. Amalfi talked about. The pump station that is currently there resides inside this area. It pumps directly out of this forebay area. As Dr. Amalfi and I talked prior to the meeting starting, this is the most polluted, is that the right term? Area in the lake. And here's where we're taking water for both the irrigation system and the fountains. It's just because it is all closed off and has a narrow entrance. We wanted to use this area by putting a dike or dam in that small area and using that, but that does not have enough water within it to meet the needs of the park as we were given the amount of the quantity that they would desire to use. So that idea is not viable, which it was in our initial report. So you have, in summary, you have different alternatives from a steel tank, concrete, fiberglass, and the forebay is not large enough to handle the area. The separation of the water was the concept we were asked to study. As Dr. Amalfi and I sat here and discussed how maybe the forebay could be used as a dike wall a foot below the water surface from the floor up, that area could be heavily oxygenated, if I got that right, and treat it in a way that the water would be more pure, even though it's all mixed. Even though it's all mixed water. The filtrated water would come directly into that forebay, and at least that would be the concentration of the water, which would increase the purity or increase the quality of water to the lake irrigation system, the park irrigation system. That would improve according to Dr. Malfi, that would improve the quality of both the fountain, and we know that it would improve the quality of the irrigation system. The lake, or the park, as I looked at earlier before coming in here, is in better condition than I've seen it in some time. And I saw it from day one under MCO and other folks. And I understand it's because there's a great deal of leach factor going on right now by watering heavily to leach the salts down so the turf has a better chance of having quality. That is a method by which is used in our industry if you have cheap water and the resources and the pumping to be able to do that. And this system also has a computerized irrigation system, so you're able to manage the water by flow and by quantity and by actually from a weather station to decide how much evapotranspiration takes place. But in this case, because the leaching factor is such a high volume, it's really kind of on its own schedule as far as it's done by personal judgment rather than just by weather. So that was our goal, to look at the separation. Any questions?
I just noticed in your report that you did not recommend the above-ground tank, but you think the other three are feasible. Is that correct?
Say that again?
In your report, you said that you had not recommended the above-ground storage tank, but the others are feasible.
Well, then my report is wrong, because we do recommend the above-ground tank.
Oh, okay.
It's the dam we don't recommend, or dike, because there isn't enough storage capacity within it currently.
Oh, okay.
And we looked at dredging. We thought, well, that could be dug out. And then you look at the lake,
Yeah.
you look at the fountain pumps, you look at all of that. It gets into be quite a menagerie nightmare, because there's too many working parts going on at the same time.
Okay, so I just thought that it wasn't recommended because you needed the booster and all of that. But
No.
I guess it
I may
is
have
one it's
misquoted
recommended.
myself. Yes.
Okay. Councilman Yates.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this presentation. Appreciate it. Annual maintenance costs on all three, I presume that they're within the realm of each. You've got installation costs, but then once it's up and running,
They're all going to be very similar in cost. There won't be a big difference in the cost of operation and or maintenance of them.
can you quantify the amount?
I have not estimated the amount.
Okay. Hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars?
You're into thousands of dollars because that's what it would normally cost you to maintain even what you currently have, but not into hundreds of thousands, no.
Thousands of dollars annually?
I would say
Monthly?
you probably, now what are you wanting to quantify? Which items?
Well, the operation, which you mentioned that the annual maintenance costs of all of them are
But
relatively.
you have so much horsepower you have to turn on to accomplish so much water GPM put out, so they're all going to be the same.
Well, the electrical costs aside, but the general maintenance costs of maintaining all of these systems,
They're all going to be similar, yes.
and that amount is thousands of dollars a month, thousands of dollars a year, tens of thousands
I
of
would say it
dollars a
would be
year?
under $20,000 a year.
Okay, so 20,000 or less.
You drug that one out of me.
Yes, he wasn't going to let you get away
I could
without
tell.
it. Any other questions? Councilman Leger?
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier, we talked about aeration, and we're looking at water quality enhancement. Now we're looking at enhancing the grass by giving it a more pristine source of water. Is that pretty much the bottom line?
Yes, and there's also the irrigation, the maintenance of the irrigation system itself, because this water has been an enemy
Yeah.
to the
So
irrigation
it's a more
parts.
pristine source of water
Yes.
primarily, and we're trying to
Answer is yes.
manage that separately. This is kind of off the wall, but seeing we've talked a lot about aeration today and in the past, and we're now looking at the quality of the grass itself. You mentioned filtration. Have there ever been any considerations of aerating the grass itself? I know that growing up in a different part of the country, that is something that's done so that there's more infiltration of the water and the releasing of the salt, so forth and so on. So, it's in the aeration theme. So maybe Mark is a better person to answer the question.
You're talking about aeration of the turf itself?
Yeah, there's...
That's a normal practice. It should be carried on 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah, and are we doing that, Mark? Excuse me, thank you.
Yes, and we also use hollow tine, which is the preferred method. It pulls out a plug as opposed to just squeezing the ground.
Okay, so we are aerating
Yes.
the turf. Thank you.
Okay, next presentation is,
I'm sorry.
oh, I'm
I had
sorry,
a que-
Brady.
My question is, we originally had you spec out storage for 400,000 gallons, correct?
Yes.
And then you learned that we were using twice the amount of water.
Yes.
But in the water quality report from Dr. Amalfi, it indicates that the sodium would be about half or less, about 40% or so would be introduced with this cleaner water that would be coming through. So I'm wondering if you don't need to really double the size of the tanks, but it might be maybe somewhere in between, because the water will be cleaner, and we may not have to be irrigating as much as we are to push the sodium down into the ground. So is that something that could be?
That's a theory.
Okay.
But the last thing you want to do is undersize a storage tank. We were given the capacity that the park needed. We did not determine that. And then within that, you might see the 600,000 gallons. We have 800,000 gallon storage, because you can't pump everything out of the storage tank. So you have to realize that there's only a certain amount you're going to get out anyway.
Okay.
So you don't ever pump anything completely to the bottom out. And then you've got to look at your refill, the amount of time they have to replenish it. And then you have to look for the worst day that will happen and the treatment plant doesn't deliver.
Right.
So you have to have a buffer factor, and there's a very small one.
So my understanding, it's about 11 hours to fill the tank completely?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And then,
That's at the current rate that they have been.
and I'm just kind of picking up on Councilmember Yates' question regarding maintenance, because I'm not sure it was really getting kind of picked up where he was really headed. But is there something as it relates to the, like a steel tank requires a different type of maybe shutdown annually to clean up the interior, and versus the concrete, and which probably has a longer life, Those are all would be decisions,
The
'cause-
quality of the water will have everything to do with that.
Okay, because
We have not studied the longevity of either one of those with the current filtered water.
I mean, just looking at what you had, it looks like, was it 1.3 million was the concrete?
I believe that's
option?
correct.
And it seems like normally a lot of reservoirs are constructed of concrete, and it seems like they seem to be maybe more durable over the life of that.
They're not only more durable because they're covered and it's
Right.
dark in there. As long as you don't get any bad guys growing in there, the water's a better quality. And the temperature is considerably different than in a steel tank.
Okay, thank you.
But if we're moving the water out of the tank every day nearly, we're putting clean water back in the tank, which means you really wouldn't want a 2 million gallon tank, because now we're going to get more spoilage, and that's what was Dr. Malfi kind of referred to, the spoilage factor. When we don't turn the water over, it spoils.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Mayor and council members, thank you very much for your time. My name is Patrick Kelly. I'm I'm an electrical engineer with Quantum Integrated Solutions. We're a local engineering and integration firm that specializes in industrial process control for industrial applications. So we currently work with the sanitary district. We also work with copper mines and semiconductor facilities on the electrical control systems. So all the things that turn on, turn off, how they turn on and they turn off. So we were asked to investigate the current system and take a look at what our recommendation would be to upgrade the controls. So the current system is fairly old equipment. It doesn't meet electrical code compliance. It also has very limited capability in terms of how the fountain is controlled. So it's a go or no-go situation in terms of 2 pumps, and the pumps are either at 100% or nothing. So, and if the wind is past currently 7 miles per hour, then it doesn't run. That's it. It's manually overridden based on the conditions currently of the algae and the different biologic conditions as an aerator manually, but there's no remote control capability. It's very similar to a sprinkler timer that you might have at your home in just a very basic on-off. And the bottom picture is that, it's hard to see here, but the bottom picture is that controller right now. And those time periods in terms of on and off is hard-coded in the program. It's very difficult to adjust. You have to have a laptop with a special cable and a special software to even make some adjustments in terms of the time and the duration or if the clock is changed. There's a mechanical weather wind station that provides that interlock, and it's either a go or no-go based on the wind. There's also currently no documentation on the existing system, just the tribal knowledge that's been handed down from the maintenance personnel.
Bad.
So our proposed new system, again, you know, how would you redesign this but still keep the capabilities, would be with a modern industrial process controller called a PLC. This is standard practice in any industrial control system. It's an embedded controller that will run 24/7 for 20 plus years. We also propose a 7-inch color touchscreen with a custom written code for the interface, so we can adjust that, have adjustable set points, we can adapt things as necessary. We can change the time, the wind. We can also do some very cool things in terms of the pump operation. And the next presenter is going to talk about the actual drive for the motor and how that can be variable. But this system would also allow control of that. It would run today for the current system and allow the flexibility for a future variable frequency drive system. So a lot of different adjustabilities, such as, let's say the wind is currently 8 miles an hour. Right now, that will not run the 2 pumps. That's it. It doesn't run. Where we say, okay, maybe it's below some value. Let's run 1 pump instead of 2, so we can still have the beauty and the aesthetics of the fountain, but based on the wind conditions, it wouldn't be tall enough to actually leave the boundaries of the park. So you could still have the fountain under limited wind conditions and not cause any damage to nearby residents. We also propose a new solid-state weather station with no moving parts, so it would be much more reliable and last for the long term. There'd be no maintenance required, and it'd be a completely automated interface. The whole cabinet would be retrofitted in the existing enclosure, so the whole controls could be retrofitted in approximately 1 day. We'd also have a full drawing package, documentation package, so as maintenance personnel changed over, it would be all documented. There'd be bill of materials, drawings, so that things could be maintained over the long term. We typically design systems to last between 10 to 20 years based on the components inside. We also have thought about a remote access. So currently, you have to be physically present in front of the system, and you can see from these pictures, oops, it's the wrong direction, here on the top right with those manual controls, and the only way to do that is to physically be standing there. So one of the options we've explored is a secure remote capability via cellular connection, so that certain maintenance personnel can turn on, turn off the fountain. They don't physically have to drive there. Maybe they're somewhere else or attending a meeting, but they do want to adjust the schedule, adjust the clock. There's a special event going on. That can all be done through a secure remote access. That's an optional capability. And this system, with all of those options, is approximately a $50,000 budget. There's a detail in your packet. One of the other options I think would be really value added to the community would be display of those remote functionality. So in a lot of process manufacturing facilities, they have a big screen TV. for management in a facility, so you know what real-time production, scrap rates, uptime of your equipment, and we could adapt that scenario for the fountain, so that, this is an example of some example mock-up here, but a big screen TV here in Town Hall or wherever you choose that's got real-time status of the fountain, again with that cellular connection, providing real-time data. No control, but you know what the wind speed is. Is the fountain currently running? How much more time till it is going to run? How much more time? What power it's running at? What the energy savings are based on whatever parameters we say the new and the old system are. That could also optionally be displayed on the town webpage, so that any visitor anywhere in the world could see the operation of the fountain and get some good publicity. Optionally could be a webcam. There's lots of different possibilities once you have this data, but it's taking that data that's traditionally an island of information and displaying that for the world. Again, this is monitoring only, so there's no control capability, but sharing that information, people who have it on a cell phone, on a web page. So the other capability of the system is integration of those future projects like variable frequency drives, the irrigation system, different parameters such as the inflow, the clean water coming from the AWT. With no extra cost, those could all be integrated into the system and then displayed. A lot of flexibility in terms of the control system. So,
Councilman Yates.
I presume there's a manual overdrive in the event the cell service goes down or something.
correct. So with most control systems, we would still leave the local the same capabilities you have. It would be through the touchscreen interface there locally. But let's say cellular connection went dead. All these different parameters, you could still go physically to the station and control everything like you are now in manual mode. So that's called an HOA switch or a hand-off auto. So you'd go into hand mode and you could operate everything locally.
And thank you. And not that I presume this would happen, but your cybersecurity.
Yeah, correct. So there's a lot of details, right?
So some of my son is a computer genius. Not that he would do this, but in the event someone wanted to log on and hack the system and.
Correct. So
And keep the fountain on.
Keep it
all
on,
the
off.
time.
right. So there are some capabilities. We would provide an override switch very easily. With one flick of a switch, you could take the whole thing offline and provide what's called an air gap. So there's literally no control from the outside world. So if there ever was a problem, somebody could just walk over and inside the locked building could take that offline. But there's a lot of security protocols. Again, these follow industrial protocol standards, same as, for example, the sanitary district here in town. So, and those change every year, but we follow best practices for cybersecurity based on different international standards. There's actually a Department of Homeland Security has a cybersecurity group for industrial infrastructure. We also follow those best practices. But there are a lot of details. We'd have to work with your IT group and things like that, make sure those are implemented per the standards.
Vice Mayor?
So I love the remote access. I think that's awesome that Kevin can turn it on from his cell phone someday. But can you also do it? Is it also web-based?
So that's an optional thing.
Okay.
Once we have the data, again, displaying that data and making it available, we can do a lot of cool things, such as a custom API that could then, on the website, take that data, such as current runtime, energy, countdown clock, wind speed, all these parameters, and then display it on the web page.
But could Kevin control it, or Kevin and Mark control it from their desktop, just like the cellular
It would be a
interface?
web-based connection, so anywhere they have web, like their own smartphone,
Yeah, okay.
at home,
Same as
in
the
the
cell.
office, exactly. It would be a secured, password-protected, encrypted web page. So
Yeah.
that's
It's
great.
pretty much what Raymond does when you say, hey, the air conditioning isn't on. He takes out his phone and he puts it on for you,
Right.
It's-
So if you have like a
it's,
Nest, this is the way
yeah.
the world is going. If a Nest thermostat,
Smart Lake.
Yeah.
Smart Lake,
Smart
right?
Lake.
Exactly. Now, the whole key to that is the monitoring features. The status of the pumps. The temperature, the wind speed. Those are open, to be used as read-only data. But the right data, such as turning on the pumps, would be very securely protected.
This is excellent. This has just so many of the features that we've been asking for. Every time we say, can you run it on one pump? No, we can't do that. Can we do this? No, we can't do that. So we really have very outdated technology in there.
And the beauty of this system is it can be scaled. So it could operate tomorrow and run the system in enhanced capability mode. And then over time, depending on what upgrades get done, those get added into the system with virtually no changes. So we've designed this to be completely expandable for the future.
It's great. Yeah, I
And-
love this part, being
And-
able to see.
If I could just
Sorry.
clarify too, this
Yeah.
is a two-parter though. The first part is the control systems, which doesn't really control the fountain on like one pump at this.
That's correct.
That's part two, where we'll be hearing this.
But just like your sprinkler controller at home, you know, the thing that's on the wall, the electronics that tells turn on and off is one piece, and the actual valves and how many zones you have is another piece. So that's the next gentleman. Kevin's going to be talking in detail about the drives, and, you know, that's where the real money is.
With the variable drive.
With the variable frequency drives. But this is the control system. So this is the sprinkler time. This is turning the outputs on and off. But whatever those outputs are, you know, is a separate discussion, just like valves in your pool.
Okay, then let's go with our next
Okay.
presentation.
Thank you very much for your time. Yeah.
Because we're limited in our time. But this is something that I asked to be in the presentation, the variable frequency drives, because we've discussed this for many years. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is
Okay.
Kevin Baker. I'm a registered professional engineer. I work for Keller Electrical Controls. I'll try my best. We were brought in specifically to address the existing motor control system. And we were asked to take a look at the idea of applying a variable frequency drive to this application to replace your existing controls. So, give you some background. Keller Electrical has been in business since 1982. I've been with them for the last 5 years. I have spent 30 years in this industry working on this stuff, and we have basically all the capabilities of providing, building, servicing, pretty much all the equipment that we speak about here. So I'd like to just skip past the pretty stuff here, and let's see if we can do this. Come on. Next. Okay. Here's your existing system. We have 3 vertical pumps, 600 horsepower each, that run the fountain. We were told that the normal operation is to run 2 pumps, and you get about 300 feet of altitude out of the fountain. And on special occasions, you run all 3 and get about 560 feet. That's great. We watched 2 of the units run. Kevin fired them up for us, and they run at full load. They're pulling exactly 600 horsepower each to lift that water 300 feet in the air. So that's kind of unusual. Typically, pump applications, the pumps are designed to run at about 80% of total load. So you're getting everything out of them that you can at the present time. Come on. Let's do it the hard way. Your existing equipment dates back, this is not working. Your existing starter equipment dates back to the 1970s. Thank you. And it is starting to show its age. I don't know if you've had any maintenance issues. We were discussing this with Kevin. You've had some problems with the switch, main incoming power switch. I don't know if you've had any issues with the starters themselves. But eventually this is going to have to be replaced. This stuff is very old, and you can't get spare parts for it anymore. So one way or the other, this is going to have to go sometime in the future and be replaced with something newer. I don't think you got it. Come on, sweetheart. We were provided a spreadsheet that basically indicates that with the operation that you have currently, you're spending about $148,000 a year on electricity to run these pumps. And I spoke with Mike earlier, and he said that was about correct. So that works out to approximately $400 a day over the year. I know you've got different rates, different times, but just for best estimation, $400 a day is about what it costs you to run these pumps. And a lot of reasons people use VFDs is to save energy. We'll get into that a little bit later. And your particular application, that's kind of hard to do. Depends on what you want to do with your fountain. This is annoying. normally I'm not this incompetent. I got it. Well, it's just the way it's set up.
We all have paper copies. If we gave you a paper copy, you want to
That
just
would
walk us through
probably
it?
be good. But
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have a copy.
Not quite, today's Thursday.
Maybe we
Yeah, we'll just leave it up like that.
we'll just leave it like that.
We'll work on it that way.
Okay.
Variable frequency drives are used to control speed flow and head pressure, basically. You run a pump, you get a certain amount of flow, you get a certain amount of pressure, and it's based on the speed of the pump. And standard induction motors spin at one speed only. So in your case, you turn the pump on or you turn it off. You get a certain amount of flow, a certain amount of head, and you get a certain amount of height. Two pumps running at full rated power, 300 feet, three pumps running at full rated power, 560 feet. But if you want to reduce the power consumption, you've got to slow the pumps down. And the only way to do that is through a variable speed drive. To provide the most economical option, we looked at what we could do. We want to run two VFD for each motor. What did we want to do to cost the least amount of money right up front? And from looking at it, our option was to provide one VFD to run two motors. So that would cover you for the majority of the time when you operate, and then when you want to run all three, we would add a soft starter to start the third motor and run everything at full power, and then you could get full height out of the system. Let's see. This is difficult to see, unfortunately. I think you can see it up there better. Basically, what we have in this case is the incoming power, which is 2,300 volts. We have a VFD and the switchgear system where we have three contactors, one to feed each of the three pumps. And then the third pump has a second contactor with a reduced voltage starter. So when we want to run all three, the VFD operates pump number 1, pump number 2, and the soft starter runs pump number 3. Okay? The rest of the time, we don't run the soft starter, and we can select any pair of those pumps.
So why wouldn't you run the soft starter on the first one? Since, as I understand from SRP, immediately it's a higher ampage that it needs to. Like, I've been in the pump house, and when the pumps first start, you know, the
current
gauge
is
goes
awesome.
way up.
Yes.
So they charge us by that higher
Yes, they do.
ampage. So if you
It's
have,
called demand charge.
okay, so then if you're starting it up slower, then it doesn't have that big
Yes,
jolt.
but when you start it on a VFD, you get almost no inrush current.
And what does that mean?
Well, whenever you start a motor across the line or at any voltage, it draws a certain amount of current to spin it up.
Okay.
On a VFD, we control it from 0 speed all the way to full speed. I can take that motor and start it and take it to full speed without ever exceeding the full load current on the nameplate of that motor.
Okay.
A soft starter will still draw more current than the VFD will.
Okay. So we're
And
still,
That's the first thing. The second thing is a soft starter is still a device that's going to run the motor at 100% speed. Running two motors simultaneously at the same reduced speed is more efficient than running one wide open and controlling the second motor.
okay, I got it. Go
Okay.
ahead. Thank you.
So the only time we want to run all three motors is when we're running them all 100%, so we can
Right.
get the full 560 feet.
Okay.
So the reason VFDs are so popular in pumping applications is due to the fact that by controlling pump speed, we can reduce power consumption. And that's through what are called the affinity laws. And the affinity laws are ideal where the flow is proportional to the pump speed, the pressure is proportional to the square of the pump speed, and the power required is proportional to the cube of the pump speed. So a small reduction in speed produces a small reduction in flow, and a bigger reduction in pressure, and a much bigger reduction in power. By running two pumps at 90% speed, the height of the fountain will be reduced to about 80% of its height because it has to do with head pressure. We're lifting so many gallons of water so many feet into the sky, and that requires X amount of horsepower. If we only lift it 80% as high, 240 feet for example, the power goes down to 73% of what you're currently using. So, in our example, you're burning $400 a day. If we were willing to run the pumps and keep the fountain at 240 feet instead of 300 feet, you would be burning $300 a day.
And is that running it for the 15 minutes?
That's for over the 15 minutes.
Okay, so.
Without your demand charge.
Okay, so theoretically, if you wanted to do the $400 a day, you
You
could.
can turn it all the way up.
You can run it longer?
You can run it longer, yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Yates?
Along those same lines, apples to apples, if you did run it the same height that we're doing it now, it'd still be $400 a
It would
day.
be a little bit more because the drive actually is going to require
More
some
expensive.
power to run it. There's some efficiency loss in adding a drive in, but the idea is you're going to save power by slowing it down. That's the reason you do it.
Okay.
In most applications, there's some kind of a control element on the flow. You have a valve, or generally it's a valve controlling the flow, which you don't have because it's a fountain. In process control, there's usually a valve, and you normally do not run at 100% all the time.
So again, apples to apples, though, if we maintain the existing height, it's about, if not more money
It's a little
than,
bit more money if you,
than existing.
The VFD doesn't buy you anything.
okay, but the existing system, we don't have the ability to turn it down a little
You
bit.
have no ability to turn it down.
So no matter what-
You have three speeds, one pump, two pump, and three
Yes,
pump.
on or off.
Yes, on or off.
Okay.
Does it save on the wear and tear on
It
the?
certainly does. It's a
Okay.
lot less shock loading on the pumps themselves when you start them. You have full control of the motor all the way up and all the way down. Essentially, from the power side, we lose the demand charge that you get that you have to pay extra for.
Right.
The power factor, which is, you can talk to the power company about it, but power factor is essentially how many amps do you draw to make so many horsepower. The VFD provides power factor correction for those motors so that your power factor is greatly improved and you have less current going into the drive system when you're operating on the VFD and that's something else we can look at, but you have less amps going in to run those pumps. So that's a trade-off on the efficiency loss of the drive. So your $400 a day, it could be $398, could be $425. I don't know. We'd have to look at the numbers. We have to
Right.
see what your actual power factor on those motors are
Okay.
right now. But you can go back and talk to SRP and negotiate
Yeah.
better rates.
That's good. Vice Mayor, did you have a quick question? We're running out of time.
I'll let you finish. You might answer it.
Okay.
The big thing from our standpoint, and Patrick talked about it, is when you have a VFD and you've got your wind speed feedback, when the wind speed starts to pick up, we can slow the pumps down. And the fountain comes down and you don't blow water everywhere else. So you can still aerate. You can still get the function. And if you want to make your fountain go up and down and be more spectacular than just blowing water straight in the sky, we can make it cycle. So the VFD, we can start gently without drawing high currents. SRP may offer you incentives. I don't know if they do. Some of the other companies do offer incentives for
Yeah.
VFD applications. They can offset some of the costs. So you can look into that. And that was basically my presentation. The particular piece of equipment that we're quoting for this application has been out since about 1992. There's approximately 200 of them installed in this state, in this general area, most of them in mining applications. But we have a long track record with them. We service them. We start them up. I'm one of the service engineers that actually starts them up. So we're available. You don't have to fly somebody in out of Los Angeles or Houston, Texas. And they're very high reliability pieces of equipment. They've got a design life of about 20 years.
Okay. Yeah, and I wish we had more time. You know, we have a meeting right after this. It seemed like we had a lot more questions than we thought we would have, but all four presentations have been excellent, and we thank you for all the work you did. This has been a long time coming that we needed this information, where we are now, all of our options, and I want to thank you all for doing it in a way that all of our residents can understand. Okay?
Mayor, I'd like to know the cost of this system.
Do you
The
have
system
that?
as proposed, I believe, is about $175,000. I'm sorry, $750,000.
No, now, come on.
Now, wait a minute, you already
I'm sorry, I'm
said.
tired.
Sign
Take
right
that
here.
back.
No, $750,000.
It's quite a,
Yeah, it's in the
It's in
proposal
there.
list.
quite a
Okay,
Thank you.
markup.
all right.
Good job, Hen.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you again, and I know you would all be available if we have any additional questions. We'll do them through our town manager if we have more questions, so
Mayor
thank
and
you.
council, if I could just synthesize what we just heard very quickly. It appears that there is consensus for perhaps on the aerators for us to perhaps move forward with that this fiscal year. We have the resources in the capital improvement budget. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and proceed with that, since it appears that that seems to be the major thing that could help just with the smell and odors and issues that we've experienced at the lake. I think the other things are more midterm and long-term solutions that would probably need to be addressed through the capital improvement program, which
Right.
we will address through the budget process. If that's all, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. If it's okay with everybody, I'll adjourn the meeting, and so that we can have 5 minutes before our next meeting.
Absolutely.
All right, then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned, and come back in 5 minutes. as everybody's ready? You ready? Miss Beth's ready. Ready? I'll wait till she's ready. She's so good. Okay. Call the regular meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for our invocation. Pastor David Taylor from the First Baptist Church of Fountain Hills is here with us tonight.
Last meeting was exciting. I just have to say that. I'm excited about the things that were there and looking forward to this meeting as well. Let's pray. Father God, we come before you. We are just thankful for just the way that you love us and the way that you care for us, Lord. I pray a special blessing on those that stand before me, Lord, as they go through this meeting and they administer and they work for this town, Lord. I pray that you just bless them in special ways. I pray for everybody behind me, Lord, especially the people that are here with Fearless Kitty. Please bless their work, Lord, as they care for your creatures. Thank you for everything that you've created and the way you've blessed us, and thank you for this town. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor David, for joining us tonight. And we have a roll call, please.
Mayor Kavanaugh,
Here.
Councilmember Leger, Councilmember Yates,
Present.
and Vice Mayor DePorter.
Here.
Councilmembers Magazine, Hanson, and Brown are absent.
Okay, we start off with a proclamation for Grand Family Kinship Care Month. Whereas this year, during the month of September, Grand Family Kinship Care Month is observed, Fountain Hills, Arizona is proud to recognize the children and their grandparents and other relatives who raise them in kinship care and who ensure their safety, promote their well-being, and establish a stable household for these young people to thrive. And whereas nationally, 2.7 million children are living with grandparents and other relatives in kinship care, of which over 104,715 caregivers reside in Arizona. And whereas relationships with family are crucial for children, it is our responsibility to promote and preserve kinship, sibling, and other familial connections for children in Arizona. And whereas Arizonans join to honor famous kinship caregivers, such as President George Washington, as well as those grandparents and relatives residing in urban, rural, and suburban households in every county of Arizona, who famously stepped forward out of love and loyalty to care for relatives when the child's biological parents are no longer able to do so. And whereas Arizonans join to honor famous youth who were raised in kinship care, such as Maya Angelou, Sandra Day O'Connor, and Barack Obama, as well as those children residing in urban, rural, and suburban households in every county of Arizona, who through the unconditional support of grandparents and other relatives have successfully addressed the emotional trauma of losing their parents. And whereas the public becomes increasingly aware of the challenges faced by children, grandparents, and other relative caregivers, providing care in partnership with the education, legal, social services, mental health, justice, and other systems to access services that can enable kinship youth to flourish in all facets of their life. And whereas nationally, grand families, kinship caregivers save taxpayers more than $6.5 billion a year. And whereas 1 in 11 of all children and 1 in 5 black children will live within a kinship family sometime during their childhood, kinship care provides the best opportunity to retain the child's cultural heritage and community ties. Now therefore, I, Linda M. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the Town of Fountain Hills, Arizona, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2016 as Grand Family Kinship Care Month in Fountain Hills. Thank you. That was a long one. We do have a second one, which is a proclamation concerning Play Day in the Town of Fountain Hills. In conjunction with the Play Day proclamation, the Town of Fountain Hills has been honored for the 6th time as a nationwide Playful City. Playful City USA is a national recognition program that honors cities and towns for taking bold steps to create more play opportunities for all kids and adults. We play too. Yeah. With cats. Whereas play is a crucial factor in the overall well-being of children, and whereas play spaces and playgrounds within walking distance of children's homes are missing from many communities and neighborhoods, and whereas unstructured, unplanned, spontaneous, and self-motivated play is on the decline, and whereas fewer children spend time outside at parks and playgrounds, and whereas recess is being shortened or removed from school curriculums, and whereas children who play are healthier and suffer less obesity and obesity-related health problems such as diabetes and heart disease, and whereas children who play do better in school and develop cognitive skills that are linked to learning and academic performance, and whereas children who play learn the social skills that help them become happy and well-adjusted adults. Whereas parents, schools, child care centers, nonprofit organizations, businesses, churches, synagogues, mosques, and all interested parties wish to raise the community's children to become healthy, happy, and successful adults. Now, therefore, I, Linda M. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the Town of Fountain Hills, Arizona, do hereby proclaim September 17th, 2016 as Play Day in the Town of Fountain Hills, Arizona, and I urge all town citizens to celebrate Play Day and support efforts to build and maintain play spaces and playgrounds in our community and neighborhoods for the well-being of this and future generations. That's a nice one. Okay. All right, then we have, next item is economic development. That's my report. Let's see, Economic Development Committee, as you know, I sit on that committee for the Maricopa Association of Governments. We had an update on statewide tourism and shopping initiative. The topic was extending the current 75-mile zone for shopping or visiting that Mexicans can get to access the entire state. According to ASU, the economic impact of extending the border zone statewide for the Mexican tourists holding border crossing cards could generate up to $181 million in additional estimated spending and result in 2,179 additional jobs. Most of the Mexicans who can obtain these cards are middle class and they are highly vetted. MAG supported the initiative. We had a presentation by Local Motors, a manufacturing company that designs and uses 3D printing. They're located in Chandler. The company is a collaborative that uses co-creation model that collects design ideas from all over the world. They have over 50,000 members focused on engine design alone. They unveiled their vehicle called Ollie, a 3D printed autonomous electric and recyclable shuttle bus. These buses will be available for cities and towns to rent. There was also a presentation on Sister Cities programs discussing how communities could leverage existing Sister Cities connections for economic development opportunities. In particular, the speaker singled out Fountain Hills as one of the best-run Sister Cities programs under Sharon Morgan. So I do want to congratulate former Mayor Sharon Morgan on being recognized for all the work she's done with our program. And that is my economic development report today. Next, we have the recognition of retiring Strategic Planning Advisory Commissioner Lena Belliner. Lena, we have a certificate for you. We thank you for your time on the SPAC. SPAC is a voluntary commission, and during the time that Ms. Belliner was on, she devoted quite a lot of time to them updating their strategic plan, and we thank you for your service. And if you come on up, I think Bob wants to take a picture. For your dedicated service on the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission.
I just want to say thank you, Mayor, and to the council, and I also want to congratulate you on your great victory.
Now we have a presentation on the 2016 legislation. It's a presentation by the League of Arizona Cities and Towns Deputy Director Tom Belshie and Senior Legislative Associate Dale Wybush. Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Dale Wybush and Tom Belshie to my right. Thank you for having us very much. I think this is our 12th or 13th legislative recap presentation that we've done. This is definitely the closest drive. We were in Holbrook, we were in Somerton, and other parts of the state as well. So we really appreciate you having us here this evening. We're going to be relatively quick in our presentation because we want to honor your time and also the ability of any of you to ask questions or make comments, because that's possible as well. The most often heard comment that we want to hear is, you guys did a great job. So I'll just put that out there right now. This session was my 10th, and I think Tom's maybe 16th or 18th or something like that. So we have a bit of time down at the League. And the League itself will be 80 years old next year. So we're getting up there in age as well. What I'm going to do is start off here with just a little session at a glance. Sine Die is Latin. I took 4 years of Latin, and my teacher, Mrs. Kading, would be proud that I could still recognize this term. So essentially, without another day. We had a bit longer session this year than we had the prior year. In 2015, we were done in 81 days. It was rapid fire, speed of business, as the governor likes to say. This year, it took us a little bit longer. A part of that was we had a little bit more money to argue about. And so that always takes a little bit more time. The general effectiveness date was a little bit ago, August 6th. We did have some bills that had special effective dates, but that's the one that most laws went into effect. We were also a little bit higher in the number of bills introduced, 1247 compared to 1163. Governor did 388 were sent to the governor. In the last week of session, there were 281 done. The last day of session, I think it started at 9 a.m. on Friday, and we quit at 5:45 a.m. on Saturday. And somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 or 3:30, I think the mayor was calling for certain bills to get moving. So we appreciate that help, by the way. They did this real blitz of bills in the last week, and that's not necessarily unusual, although that amount is unusual for us to get through. There were only 14 vetoes, so I think the bills were vetted well with the ninth floor from the State House and State Senate. We, as league staff, signed in on 90 bills. If you're not familiar with the Request to Speak system with the legislature, you can register down at the Capitol, at the House or the Senate on one of their computers, and then thereafter you can sign in from your own computers. And so we signed in as league staff 90 times. We tracked 256 bills this year. And so you're very familiar with all the subject areas that you cover as a town. And so we're always kind of on the watch. We read every single bill that comes in, make assignments according to topic area and who's going to take care of those bills, if it's Tom or Patrice or me or whoever. So we're busy. As always, we have certain focus areas, local control being our primary one, along with protection of shared revenue. I'm going to show you a slide in a minute that just shows you a sampling of some of the bills that were after us in terms of local control. We also had a pretty good year on resolutions this year. We got 5 through. Again, this is my 10th legislative session at the League, and that is by far the most resolutions we've ever had passed. And I think it's because, again, we did a good job of vetting items, and we did a lot of our homework pre-session, which leads me to the last bullet point on the slide, the pre-session work. The census bill, as well as PSPRS reform, were efforts that took months to prepare, but when we got to the session itself, we were ready. And so we were able to get those things across the finish line successfully. One of the issues that we often face, I'm going to back up a little bit here to the local control piece, is that there are certain legislators who think that things are statewide concern. But in the governor's introductory remarks at the very beginning of session, he said that he wanted to make sure that we did not have a patchwork of laws. And so we knew that we had an uphill climb on certain issues related to local control this year, that it was a little more strongly emphasized by the governor. Nonetheless, we maintain a good relationship with the governor, but there's definitely a thought process that we have, that local decision-making authority, the government closest to the people, is the one that we find to be the most successful. And that is not shared by everybody at the Capitol, but it's shared often enough so that we are successful, generally speaking. I mentioned just a minute ago here, this is a listing of what this year we decided, instead of calling them anti-city bills, we called them supremacy bills, that somebody was trying to establish some supremacy over us. And so this is a sample of things that we did work long and hard on in many different arenas. There's a smattering of fails and a smattering of signs in here. There's a lot of fails, though, as you can see. But then there's some also things that we fixed, and Tom's going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. We just don't sign in against bills. We also sit down with stakeholders and say, well, that makes sense, but let's try to fix this a little bit and make some tweaks to it. A great example is the drone bill. This is a bill that we knew having a patchwork of laws related to commercial drone usage would have been abhorrent for business. And so we were able, through many hours of meetings, somebody's got to say it. Did they drone on? Okay, I'll say it. Anyways, and when you're the League of Cities and Towns, and the people across the table from you are Amazon and Google, the stakes are pretty high, and yet we were able to get a successful resolution on that. So Tom's going to go into some of these high-profile issues that we went through this year, and then some budget talk, and then we'll kind of see where the time is, and then we'll kind of go from there in terms of questions if you have some.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, Tom Belshey, and it's a pleasure always to be here. This year, the bills that we have listed here were the ones that League staff focused on, that we spent most of our time on. So we wanted to make sure and cover those a little bit in depth with you. PSPRS reform, I think, is the thing that we are the most proud of out of this session. This was an effort that took over 2 years, working with firefighters and police officers, the cities and towns, and other interested parties, sitting down and talking about how can we make sure that we take care of the very important retirement system for public safety and yet make sure that cities and towns are not putting themselves in jeopardy by having huge unfunded liabilities. And so spending that time, the league, the thing that we did that I think everyone appreciated is we set up a task force that talked about those issues, and it came to be seen as it wasn't driven one way or the other. It was gathering information. It was putting information together from other states. It was putting information together from the police and firefighter unions. It was getting information from the cities and towns and putting together documents and talking about how do we preserve that retirement system and yet also preserve city and town finances. And we think that we came up with a very good solution, one that we were able to go hand in hand with over to the legislature. That is something that I know the legislators appreciate, is when there is something like that we can go over and say, we sat down, we worked this out together, and we think it's not only going to save cities and towns a lot of money, it's going to save the state a lot of money, and it's going to make sure, again, that our firefighters and police officers that put their lives on the line are going to be recognized with their retirement system. So that resulted in a successful campaign, a successful vote to support the bills that were passed, and we think in the future it will bring down unfunded liabilities, but we'll still have to deal. There's still things that we have to deal with in this, and that's the current unfunded liability that exists for the first two tiers. But we see this as a way of stopping the bleeding, and hopefully from here that we can continue to work towards a successful resolution of the whole thing. Residential rental was an issue. It's $77 million for cities and towns statewide. It's a huge issue for us, and basically what this would do, what this bill would have done, is taken away our ability to have residential rental. The state does not tax residential rentals, and so that's part of the problem, is that this is just something that cities and towns do. But we were able to defeat that, and we think that there's we're trying to develop a recognition at the legislature about the work that cities and towns do with regular residents and also with the rentals, and that sometimes the rentals require more resources from cities and towns. And so we know that issue is going to come back, and we'll be working on it again next year. Another one that we are proud of is 2483. This is the one that Dale referred to that the mayor helped us out with, and we appreciate her help in the last waning hours of the session and very early in the morning. Cities and towns their state shared revenues are distributed based on census numbers. And every 5 years, cities and towns that are growing at more than the state average want to get recognition for their growth and to receive the money that they need for the consequences that growth naturally brings. The problem is that when you use the same number for 5 years and then you change kind of midstream, there is a huge budget hit all at once to cities and towns that are not growing at the state rate or even going backwards in their population. So what we thought would be a better approach, and one thing that we were able to work out amongst ourselves, is we are going to have the census number in 2020, and then going from there, every year we're going to use the census estimate, the annual census estimate, as the new number. So every city and town will get a new number each year. If there is any hit to a city or town, they'll be able to deal with it more gradually than a 5-year drop-off. We think this was a huge victory for us. We don't understand, this bill had no votes against it in committee in the House, but it was one of the last bills dealt with. And again, we appreciate Senator Kavanaugh and his help with that, and also the mayor. Community facilities districts, this was another this is a difficult bill to understand. Community facilities districts are used by cities and towns to help developers, to help bring infrastructure for development that has been approved by cities and towns. And right now, those community facilities districts work so well because cities and towns use them instead of doing a broad development, they will do development as it makes sense. And so some of the people who have property that needs to be developed want the city sometimes to be a little faster than we are, to allow them to develop more property at once than sometimes we think is wise. And so this bill ended up, the one thing is that what they stated that the issues was not what showed up in this legislation. What showed up in this legislation was having the governing board of these community facilities districts be run almost completely by the developer themselves. The big issue that we have with this is that this is taxing authority. And giving taxing authority to a private entity is something that is a core basic principle. I mean, when I went to MPA school, there was a couple things that they taught us. One is broad, when you do taxes, it's broad-based, low rates. That's something that, and another thing is that you have an elected body. When you give a taxing authority to any entity, they need to have an elected body, somebody who's responsible back to the voters. And so those were the basic issues that we had with this legislation. We believe that we will, again, be seeing this again next year. What we hope we will be doing is talking about how can we speed the process up? How can we make it better for the property owners? How can we make sure that our concerns are met while meeting their concerns? We hope to have the same kind of process that we did for PSPRS, something that we can sit down and work with them through and go hand in hand with the legislature to do something. We'll see if that happens next year. Another one that we worked a long time on and got a cooperative bill at the end was Senate Bill 1350. This is the Airbnb bill. The issue was Airbnb wanted to pay the tax. We were very happy about that. What they didn't want to allow, though, is some of the cities and towns in Arizona didn't want Airbnb to operate within their cities and towns. So what we did is we worked with those communities to talk about what their concerns were, and we tried to find what the basic concern of some cities and towns were, is that by far most of those are benign rentals, and they work out just fine, and the sharing economy is very important to the governor's office. The problem that cities and towns has is that some of them are not, though. There are large parties, or a lot of noise making that goes on, and it disturbs the other property. So you're pitting one property owner against another. And that makes it difficult because they don't call. Those property owners are usually from out of state. It's very difficult to get a hold of them. So who gets called? Our police officers get called. You get called. The complaints come into the city and not necessarily directly to the person who owns that rental unit. So two things we had to work out. We had to find a way to make ourselves comfortable that we would have a way to solve those problems if a rental became an issue, if there were these parties, if there was a problem that violated nuisance ordinances locally. So we found a way to work that out. We gave up our right to say no to them. The fact of the matter is that even though some cities were banning them, if you went on to Airbnb's site, there were hundreds, if not thousands, listed in some of those cities. And so we were really fighting an uphill battle against that. And so we decided to work that issue out. We feel good about the tools that we gave cities and towns to work with on that. And also, we worked out the taxation issue, and that means it's going to mean a good deal of revenue for the cities and towns. And then finally, one disappointing issue that came out this year was Senate Bill 1487. Basically, what this new law says is that if the legislature passes a law and cities and towns are not in compliance with that law, any legislator can make a complaint to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office can investigate. If the Attorney General determines that there is a violation of the law, then they give a 30 days cease and desist order. If the city or town continues to do it, then they can take all of their urban revenue sharing and their state shared sales tax. And if they don't, and what they have to do is, since they can't take it all at once, since it's done on a monthly basis, they would have to put up a bond on that. Now, it sounds like, well, cities and towns should be abiding by the law, but as you know, it's much more it's much more complicated than that, and especially when it comes to charter authority. We believe that some cities and towns have standing laws that they've had for a long time. They were done as part of their charter authority, and when the state comes in and passes something and then expects them to give up something that may have been passed by their own citizens locally, we take issue with that. We have one complaint now that has been lodged, and so we're waiting to see how this plays out. We're hopeful that we can work with the legislature to talk about, to try to get some definition around charter authority, but we believe that this is something, a charter process is something that local citizenry goes through to create their own local constitution, if you will. And so we take that very seriously. It's quite a process. We've done a couple of charter presentations to this council in the past, and it is a very lengthy, very citizen-intensive process, and so it's something that we fought very vigorously, but ultimately we lost. So we will, when we know more about that, we'll bring that back to you. So I wanted to skip over a couple of these and just talk quickly about the budget. The budget was good to us. We didn't have any big cuts. In fact, some things that we had been paying for related to the Department of Revenue doing city and town collections, we stopped having to do that. Just quickly, that process is going very well. For the town of Fountain Hills, it's going to mean new information, better information that's going to be able to be provided to you. And we're very confident that they're going to be ready to go. We're starting the testing of that project, and we'll see how it goes. While we still technically had a sweep to the HERF monies that we experience each year, it was the same amount as they swept in the last year. But they provided us one-time monies that were to be used like HERF dollars. So it wouldn't, again, they wanted to make sure that we understood this was a one-time thing. It wasn't go back to not sweeping it anymore. But since they had a surplus, like Dale mentioned, they wanted to give us some money. It will go towards, again, HERF can only be spent on state highway projects, city and town street repairs and maintenance. And so, and then one of the things that we were happy about is there was no huge tax cut. There was only $26 million in tax cuts, various tax cuts, and we think some of those were targeted and good for business, which we think is a smart thing to do. But wholesale cuts to large taxes doesn't help business, because in the end it hurts cities and towns and our ability to provide the services that business need to operate. So that's a lot in 20 minutes. I just want to say that the league appreciates all the help that we get from you. You have a wonderful staff. We appreciate your attorney as well. He helps us out a lot with taking a look at legislative language. Bev was our past president of our Clerks Association. We work very closely with them on elections issues, so we appreciate the town, we appreciate the staff, and with that, Dale and I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions? Any questions? Questions?
Just a comment.
Okay.
Dale, you may want to stand up for this. Nice job, guys. We appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate everything you do, because I see what you do, and I know that now, even though there's no session, you're still working, and there's already bills starting to be floated around, and you're catching those, and you're already thinking about it and working on it. So we appreciate it, because you're doing all the work that we don't have to do. Appreciate every Monday getting on the phone and discussing these. Patrice is doing a fabulous job, and of course Ken in leading everybody. But I know in particular what you two do, and we really do appreciate it. So I enjoy working with you also.
Thank you, Mary.
So thank you for coming out to Fountain Hills. Thank you. All right. Okay. Recognition of the town receiving the Outstanding Sports Program Award from the Arizona Parks and Recreation Association for the town's archery program. Grady?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, I'm delighted tonight to have recognition, which was really deserved by our staff for designing a new program that we hadn't had before, an archery program. And through the Arizona Parks and Recreation Association's annual conference, Angelica Giardino, who is our recreation coordinator, was responsible for that program. And we had a lot of success with that particular archery program, and a lot of youth enjoyed it. And it was one that was caught the attention of their professional association. And as you know, the highest honor that one can receive is when one's peers recognize you for your outstanding deeds. I'd like to call up Angelica and also her supervisor, Rachel Goodwin, who's the recreation supervisor, so that we can present you, the mayor can present you with your plaque.
Okay, come on up. You look a lot different than at the water bash. Come on up. Arizona Parks and Recreation Association 2016 Sports Award Program presented to Archery Instruction, Town of Fountain Hills. All right.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just want to say thank you. I know there's a lot on the agenda tonight, so thanks.
I'll fill in for Bob.
Okay, wait.
Nice. All right. Thanks, ladies.
Nick.
You can get a second job at the Timers.
Don't count on it. It's a little.
Okay. Do we have any call to the public?
No, Mayor.
No. All right. Let's go on to our consent agenda items. We have 3. I need a motion
Mayor, so moved.
for all 3 as written.
Second.
Second, and we need roll call for that, please.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Vice Mayor DePorter?
Aye.
Councilmember Yates?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
Mayor, 4-0.
Thank you. Now, consideration of appointing 4 planning and zoning commissioners for two-year terms beginning on October 1st, 2016 until September 30th, 2018. And just, again, I want to mention that these commissions are all voluntary, and the commissioners give up an awful lot of their own time, not only for being at the meetings, but all of the prep time that they do before. So we are really grateful for their service, and some of them, they want to do it all over again. So I move to appoint, let's see, Howie Jones, Eric Hansen, Amberly Dabrowski, and Jean Mikolajczyk to the Planning and Zoning Commission, each serving a 2-year term beginning on October 1st, 2016 and ending September 30th, 2018. Do I have a second?
Mayor, second.
Okay, any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 4-0.
Congratulations, Jean, Howie, Eric, and Amberly. And some of you are here. Amberly and Jean. Stand up. Come on, Jean. And Howie. I saw Howie. Where's Howie? I saw Howie. Where is he? He was here. Okay. Is Eric here? No. Okay. Well, it's great. Thank you. For the next 2 items, 5 and 6, we have 1 staff report. Open the public hearing. Public hearing to receive comments on a proposed special use permit by Fearless Kitty Cat Rescue to allow indoor kennels at 16832 East Avenue, The Fountains, located in the C2 zoning district, case number SU 2016-03. Grady, do you want to?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just turn it over to Mr. Rogers, the Development Services Director, who will be providing the report tonight.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Fearless Kitty Rescue is a nonprofit, no-kill cat rescue and kennel facility currently located at 16913 East Enterprise Drive. Excuse me. That's located in the C3 zoning district, which is a heavy or a light commercial, light industrial, heavy commercial area. They have an option to purchase, and I understand they will probably be closing today or tonight. Vacant building located at 16832 East Avenue of the Fountains, where they wish to relocate the rescue facility. The building fronts on the Avenue of the Fountains, directly abuts Gridley's store, and is across the small courtyard area from Sofrita Restaurant. This property is located in the C2 zoning district in the downtown area. The C2 district regulations are in Chapter 12 of the zoning ordinance, Section 1203D of the ordinance. In order for a kennel to operate in the C2 zoning district, a special use permit has to be granted by town council. Tonight's hearing is requesting that the council approve that request. Section 202D of the zoning ordinance outlines the key criteria that should be considered by the council in your deliberations, and they are that any special conditions that influence this location should be studied, whether any new buildings or other improvements are proposed. All the improvements are proposed to be indoors. Any traffic impacts that may be perceived, any negative influences on adjoining properties, and there should be no detriments to the public health, safety, peace, comfort, or the properties in the immediate area, or to the general welfare at the town at large. If council determined that those factors are satisfactorily addressed, you should approve the special use permit. If you determine that any of those factors are not satisfactorily met, you may attach additional stipulations to any approval, or you could deny the special use permit. Planning and Zoning Commission forwarded a recommendation to council to approve the special use permit to allow Fearless Kitty Rescue to locate at 16832 East Avenue of the Fountains as proposed and subject to the stipulations in the staff report. Staff also recommends that council approve the special use permit as requested and subject to the stipulations in the staff report. Thank you.
Okay.
The applicants are present.
Any questions for Bob? Councilman Yates?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Bob. No facade changes on the building are proposed at this time, and more importantly, in the event they want to change them, that would just follow the regular process, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But there's no changes at this point?
None right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, anything? Anything?
Mayor, just quickly, Bob, for the benefit of the public, what were the stipulations?
I don't have the staff report in front of me, so I can't tell you.
I think we have it.
Grady's checking.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have the staff, oh, you can.
No, go ahead.
Okay. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted at the regular meeting, August 11, 2016, to forward a recommendation to approve the special use permit with the following stipulations. 1, the applicant shall not store any inventory, supplies, or kennel-related equipment outside the existing building. Number 2, signage is not included in this approval. All signage shall comply with the requirements of the Fountain Hills Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 6, and shall require separate building permits.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
No, Mayor.
Okay, then if we have none, then I will close the public hearing. Consideration of the proposed special use permit by Fearless Kitty Cat Rescue to allow indoor kennels at 16832 East Avenue, The Fountains, located in the C2 zoning district, case number SU 2016-03. Any further council discussion?
I
Would
believe
anyone
there
like to
was.
offer a motion?
There was one, wasn't there? Speaker card?
The applicant was going to speak.
But we didn't, unless the applicant wants to speak? Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought we had no speaker cards.
evening. It's been a long 2.5 months, and I'm glad to be here. My name is Kim Cammons, and I am the volunteer and a co-founder of Fearless Kitty Rescue. I'd like to start by thanking the mayor and the town council for this opportunity to come before you tonight and ask for the approval of this special use permit. I'd also like to thank Bob Rogers and his team at the town hall for their help with this permit application, the Planning and Zoning Board, and the Chamber of Commerce for their support as well. I'd like to take a few minutes to share with everyone our letter to the community and why this permit approval is not just about saving cats. Communities all across the nation are taking notice that the animals in their communities, whether owned or stray, and the organizations that support them are important to the overall evaluation people make when considering where they want to live, shop, play, and raise their families. From dog parks to upscale cat cafes, the consciousness of America is moving towards a more humane and inclusive economy, and the animal welfare organizations that save the lives of these animals are at the front and center of this movement. People care about their animals, and they want them to be a part of the community. There's a paradigm shift taking place in the thinking about animal rescue, and Fearless Kitty Rescue and the town of Fountain Hills are leaders in this shift. Fearless Kitty Rescue is excited about the prospect of moving from the back street to the main street of Fountain Hills. This move symbolizes the progressive thinking and the commitment of our town in valuing the lives of animals and recognizing that how we treat our animals and those who care for them is a measure of integrity. For many people, pets are considered a member of their family. People favor adopting their new pet family member from a rescue because they know these rescues are on the front lines of saving lives. Fearless Kitty Rescue has become a destination, bringing people into Fountain Hills for adoptions, education, information, and even entertainment. And then they stay. They stay to eat, to shop, walk around the fountain, and experience the unique nature of our community. Being in the downtown business district will enable us to show people that we have rocked the status quo and preconceived notions of what a rescue shelter looks like and how it functions. Bright murals, glass windows, fresh air, and natural sunlight make everyone's lives more enjoyable, including cats. Approximately 90% of our cats are free roaming. No cage, no pen, no problems. Our style of operating enriches the lives of our animals and our volunteers and our community. And studies have shown that a rescue located in a prime location experiences a doubling in the number of animals adopted. This means a doubling in the number of lives that we can save. By supporting us with your vote tonight, you make a statement that Fountain Hills is a leader in promoting and supporting the broad vision of a compassionate and caring community that recognizes the value of the relationship between people and animals. A community that includes a new face, albeit one with pointed ears, whiskers, a tail, and a red cape. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We are a pet-friendly town. This just makes us even friendlier, right? All right, so I'll go back to where I was and close the public hearing. Consideration of proposed special use permit by Fearless Kitty Cat Rescue to allow indoor kennels at 16832 East Avenue, the Fountains, located in the C2 zoning district, case number SU 2016-03. Any other council discussion? Motion?
No?
Discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
First, I'm probably showing my hands. I have 4 pets, 2 dogs, 2 cats, 3 are rescues. I had the honor and privilege of going to Fearless Kitty and walking, and I wouldn't dare bring my pets there because they'll never come back home with me because it's a wonderful environment, a well-run operation. From an economic development standpoint, her operation does meet several SPAC requirements, which I think is tremendous. And from what we want to accomplish downtown on the avenue with the new urban village coming in, completing that what's called a sense of place, meaning everybody wants to go and just hang out because things are going on. Having a rescue like this fits that sense of place. So I'm in full support of this, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and thank you for presenting.
Okay, so he has outdone me. I only have 2 cats, but I did take my grandson to visit and came home with 2 more. All right. Anyone else? If not, you have a motion?
Madam Mayor?
Go for it.
I move to approve the special use permit to allow Fearless Kitty Cat Rescue to operate an indoor kennel at 16832 East Avenue of the Fountains, located in the C2 zoning district, subject to the stipulations outlined in the staff report.
In a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 4-0.
Congratulations. Thank you, Bob. All right. Items 7 and 8. If you don't want to stay, you can. Sure, you have a lot of work to do. Renovating that new building. Might as well get started now.
There's kitties in the lobby. Grab one on your way out.
You guys had it easy. They had a cat named Bob. They had a
All right,
cat
let's
named
give
Bob sending me
everybody
emails.
6 seconds to go. See, they're all That's amazing. Oh, they love it.
Lost your thunder, Bob.
Did you see his tie-dye shirt? That was so cute with the big cat.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, he's
I saw
got
the
a
tie-dye.
huge cat on the front.
You grab 2 more cats.
Well, not for me. My grandson took him. He begged his dad. All right. For items 7 and 8, we have one staff report. Open the public hearing for comment on ordinance 16-05 to amend section 2.07 of the Fountain Hills subdivision ordinance to allow the administrative approval of minor replats such as lot line adjustments, lot splits, and lot joins. Case number Z2016-03. Grady?
Yes, Mayor and Council, the 2 items before you, Mr. Rogers will be giving a report, but the one thing I wanted to point out is this is a change in process from what we currently have, which is legislative approval typically would be required in the approval of minor replats. Mr. Rogers will go ahead and explain the reasoning for this in his report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Ordinance 1605 is a proposed amendment to the subdivision ordinance that was originally recommended by staff as a time-saving measure. If this amendment is approved, applications for lot line adjustments, lot splits, lot joins, and similar minor replats that don't result in more than 2 lots or any new roads being created would no longer be required to receive town council approval at a public meeting. These items were virtually always placed on the council's consent agenda and approved without discussion. In order to save time, sometimes 3 weeks to a month, staff will be able to review, approve, and record these replats administratively as soon as they're in proper form. This amendment addresses one of the many routine processes that currently take longer than may be necessary to conclude under the current regulations. It's more of a housekeeping measure as we can see it. Planning and Zoning Commission forwarded a recommendation that council approve the request, and staff also recommends that the approval be approved as the recommends approval.
Okay. Council questions?
Mayor,
For Bob?
just quickly, thanks. I think this is a good revision because 9 out of 10 times, I know when these come up, I end up in your office having a conversation and relying on your recommendations and expertise. The only question I have is that in the past, if there was a neighbor, for example, that objected to a lot split, they could come to a council meeting and, air their concern or their objection. Is there a process in place where that could occur?
Not really. Right now, they don't get notified under the current regulations,
Yeah.
a lot split or a lot join either. They really, if they were to come, I don't remember the time that it's ever been taken off.
Well, I do on a couple occasions, and oftentimes in HOAs that a neighbor becomes aware that a lot split is being looked at, and I guess in that case they could be referred to your office for questions.
They could. I'm not sure what standing they would have to object to someone else splitting a lot either.
Unless the HOA, could the HOA trump your decision?
Not that I'm aware. That's a legal question.
Yes, they do.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Leger, two separate processes. The plat process and the replat that it would be is governed by the town's regulations, and the HOA has no authority over that. However, the private contract everybody entered into when they signed their closing documents gives the HOA authority that may be farther into the regulatory scheme than the town has. So it may be perfectly legal under the town's codes and ordinances and not under the private contract.
All right. Well, you've addressed my question, and people can always come to you for questions and clarification. Thank you.
Any other questions for Bob? Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Then I will close the public hearing. Consideration of ordinance 16-05 as presented. Any other council discussion? If not, motion? Thank you.
Thank you for you and your team for identifying time-saving measures out there. I think it's awesome that we're all doing that. So I have a motion.
Yes, thank you.
Move that the Town Council approve Ordinance 16-05, a text amendment to Article 2, Section 2.07 of the Fountain Hills Subdivision Ordinance to allow the administrative approval of minor replats.
Mayor, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 4-0.
Thank you, Bob. Consideration of Resolution 2016-16 approving the First Amendment to amended and restated final settlement agreement between the town and MCO Properties Incorporated and NLLC and Adero Canyon LLC. Grady, please.
Yes, Mayor and Council, the item before you is what I'd like to refer to as a win-win situation. As you're aware, in Adero Canyon, that is currently being constructed. A number of top-quality builders are building subdivisions in there. It requires quite a bit of excavation to be able to do that, and we were approached by MCO Properties, which is the master developer of Adero Canyon, if we would be interested in taking the excavated fill material away from Adero Canyon. We have accepted it, and it is approximately 12,000 cubic yards of fill material. MCO has agreed to store it on property of theirs. So this is a great situation because this would have saved, or does save us, $90,000. But most importantly, this reduces the amount of truck traffic that has to traverse through our town to be able to provide the town the fill material for the trailhead. So in light of the situation that this is saving the town $90,000, and in the current agreement, MCO Properties is on the hook for providing the temporary utilities, which have been estimated at about $90,000. We opted to go ahead and give them credit for the dirt or the fill material. So that is what is before you, is consideration of this resolution, which would approve the First Amendment to the settlement agreement that would make that take place.
Okay, thank you. Any speaker cards on this item?
Mayor.
Any council discussion, questions for Grady, anything? If not, a motion? Someone?
Madam Mayor.
Please.
Move to adopt Resolution 2016-16 that authorizes the mayor to execute an amendment and restated settlement agreement between the town of Fountain Hills and MCO Properties.
All right, second? Need a second? Thank you. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 4-0.
Okay, presentation of the tourism program and consideration of a tourism strategic plan for 2016-2019. Grady, please.
Yes, Mayor and Council, before you tonight is a presentation that will be given to you by Recreation and Tourism Supervisor Rachel Goodwin and also Tourism Coordinator Grace Gutter. This is really kind of an exciting time tonight because in addition to kind of providing you an update, they have spent a few months putting together a tourism strategic plan. As you have seen in the past, we've done a lot of great things in the tourism area, but one of the things that became very obvious was while they were working towards a vision, the vision wasn't necessarily something that was communicated. And so they were doing all the right things as a division, working on achieving a number of tourism goals, but they have put together a plan that basically documents the goals of the tourism program and basically all the deliverables to be able to achieve that. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Goodwin.
Madam Mayor, members of council, thanks for having us tonight. We do have a bit of a lengthy update. We're going to break it down into 3 parts, so hopefully it's a little more manageable. First part, we're going to do our update that we have done kind of on a semi-annual basis, sort of where we're at with the program. And we're also going to take a look at some direct deliverables for the 4th of July program that we had a couple months ago. From there, we will move into the strategic plan, and then we'll be wrapping up with a final presentation. So, without further ado, taking a look at sort of some of the bigger statistics, we are pleased to share that the gross hotel room sales tax, or the heads and beds, if you will, is up compared from FY, it should be 14-15, compared to FY 15-16, is up by about 18%. Obviously, that's a great draw for our businesses here in town. It's a good indicator that folks are coming to visit us. But it also makes us eligible for more funding through the Prop 302 Tourism Fund administered by the Arizona Office of Tourism. So that's all indicators are great there. Moving on, taking a look at some of our other statistics that we like to share with you. We're looking at our Facebook analytics, taking a year-to-year comparable from June 15 to June 16. We're up about 14%, which is, again, moving in the right direction. But what's more impressive, again, if you compare June 15 to June 2016, our engagement numbers went from about a little over 386,000 to over 630,000. And that's in a direct attribution to what we're sharing, to the content that's going up there, whether that's videos, whether that's photography, whether that's sharing relevant content, blog posts, things like that. But that's obviously a great indicator that people like what we have to say, which is great. One of the other measurables we use is our website, which is experiencefountainhills.org. You might remember back in the winter, we shared that the website went through a major overhaul, which took us a lot of time, but we have found it was well worth it. If you take a look at our page views, again, a yearly look from June 2014 to June 2015, we were a little over almost 24,000, and about a minute or so, a little more than a minute per person per session. Take the same year, June 2015 to 2016, we had over 600,000 page views and almost 2 minutes per session. This increase in page views is 255%. Wow. That means our website overhaul worked very well.
2 minutes per view?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have something to baseline that against? That's unheard of. LinkedIn, can you give us any?
It's a long time to spend on any page.
That's unbelievable.
I'm very excited when you get above a minute.
Yeah.
Ideally, it's because the content there is what people are looking for. They don't have to click off the website or the site to find it. The calendar of events is right there. Information about dining is right there. Information about golfing or recreation outings or whatever you're looking for is there. So that's what we would have a direct point towards.
Were the Facebook likes, were they all organic, or do you put any budget money for sponsorship at all?
We do put some money behind it. Generally, we time it with whether it's an event going on or a special program. We do time that, obviously, to kind of get the maximum impact. But we have found that some of our organic content is amazing. One of our best photos was a shared photo through Instagram. It was just it was a post right around the new year, and it had about 50,000. Yeah, it had about 50,000 views.
50,000.
Yes.
Oh God, you guys are rocking.
And that's but we couldn't have predicted that. It was just a really great photo at a really great time.
What was the picture of?
Of course, the fountain.
Okay.
We have some great photographers in town that share really great photos. You know, sunrises, sunsets, really some dynamic photos. So we take advantage of that. The last thing that we did pull that we thought was interesting from our website analytics were where people are visiting us from. It is able to track that. So some of our most popular cities, not surprising, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Mesa. Los Angeles pops up there.
Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. Followed by Tempe, Chandler, Gilbert, and oddly, New York.
In New York.
So just kind of food for thought there. All right, moving along. One of our biggest initiatives this spring was the Cubs spring training. We did a number of advertising initiatives at some local fields, both at Sloan Field with the Cubs, as well as Talking Stick, that obviously houses our Arizona Diamondbacks and the Colorado Rockies. What we thought was impressive was that Sloan Park posted a record-breaking 15,331 folks in one day, which not only broke records for the Cactus League, but for all of spring training. And that told us we were in the right spot. We are where the people are. The total attendance for Sloan Field was over 226,000 people. Fountain Hills had an ad in the commemorative program, full-page ad there, as well as Fountain Hills sponsored all of the home runs hit in the ballpark for the entire season. So what that means is when a home run was hit, up on the big screen, our logo came up and it says, Fountain Hills is the home run sponsor. So we had a nice little play on Facebook as well with some of the locals that had seen it and had taken pictures and posted it up there. So again, we want to be where the visitors are. We want to get our name out there, make sure people know who we are, and this ended up being a great fit for us. Lastly, we're looking at events coming up this fall. Slide City is scheduled to return at the end of September. The Roadrunner Sports Craft Classic and Half Marathon, that's a new event that'll be coming in mid-October. The Copperwind Women's Pro Challenge Tennis Tournament returns again the end of October, beginning of November. And we'll have our 2016 dining guides are out right now, and the visitors guides are actually in production. We hope to have them next week. So that kind of gives you an upcoming of where we're going into the fall. All right, with that, I'm going to turn this over to Grace. Grace is going to take a look at some of our direct analytics from 4th at the Fountain.
Good evening, Council. As many of you know, the tourism program strives to do as much surveying as we absolutely can at our special events. 4th at the Fountain not being an exception at that. What's different about 4th at the Fountain, though, is that we decided to dive deeper into our surveys and deeper into our analytics, providing you tonight with the first tourism economic impact study, where we compared the survey results as they correlated with the special event and what it therefore means for the town. The event was on Monday, July 4th. We took 323 surveys that evening, and I want to note it's important that we discuss the range in attendance. As I'm sure you all are aware, we saw a different format for 4th of July this year with no admission and no gate. And although there were a great many activities in the Great Lawn for people to enjoy food and music, no gate allowed people to span the entire park and enjoy the fireworks show from all of the beautiful viewing areas of Fountain Park, therefore making it difficult to capture a very tight attendance number. The 4th at the Fountain Committee discussed this with our fire chief along with MCSO, and we're able to kind of summarize that all parties believed we had an attendance between 8,000 and 10,000 people.
That's great.
So as part of the economic impact study, when we dive into our surveys, we ask folks, have you visited Fountain Hills before? We ask them to denote they are a resident. Yes, they have visited before, or this is their very first time visiting. And we're pleased to report to you tonight that 23% of folks indicated that this was their very first time visiting. That's a great number. We covet our new visitors, mostly because we want to turn them into returning visitors. And returning visitors are a return on our investment, and that continued interaction with them encourages return visits and an open dialogue between the potential tourism market and our town, our staff, and our community as a whole.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Just from methodology, you didn't have a barker out there trying to, hey, fill this out, and we weren't giving it away. I mean, that's a 3.5% return on surveys. These are incredible numbers, ladies, just so I'm sure you know. But how were they just coming up on their own, just saying, hey?
No.
You guys were waving a little bit?
You caught me. We used trickery.
Okay.
The truth of the matter is that oftentimes handing out surveys is like being the perfume lady at the mall, and in my attempt to spritz people as they pass by. But instead, we try to take a look at the different special events and figure out if there is a fun giveaway or a fun draw that we can use to bring people to the tent. Wouldn't you know it, at night with kids, if you have glow sticks,
Ta-da!
da-da-da-da,
Okay.
it's over.
Good job.
So yes, as soon as the sun goes down, you crack one glow stick, the kids come flooding, and then we engage families.
Tremendous. Thank you, Miriam.
Great.
So for our next analytic, we ask people where they're visiting from. And no surprise, our top 3 communities who come and visit us are Scottsdale, Phoenix, and Mesa. You can see by the graph how large that visitation is. It drops off fairly heavily before it goes to Gilbert, Glendale, Chandler, and so on. But we have a very large presence throughout the greater Phoenix Valley. Next, we ask folks to rate us on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being not impressed at all or not likely at all, 5 being very impressed or very likely. The first question we ask folks is to rate Fountain Hills as a whole, to rate their experience. 79% of those surveyed rated Fountain Hills with a 5, very impressed. And 84% of those surveyed also rated 5, very likely to return. We then ask the folks an open-ended question to let us know what would encourage them to return for another visit. These are the top 5 answers that we received at 4th of July. The fountain, of course, our beautiful namesake, family events, more events, kid-friendly activities, and more free events. So we know that the public is asking us to provide these things more readily.
Do we know that the 79%, do we know if they were return visitors or new visitors?
We can extrapolate that. We don't have that figure on hand tonight.
Okay, that would be interesting to know.
But it's absolutely a part of the survey.
Okay.
The following is our most deep analytic. It's one that I have a feeling we'll have a little bit of discussion about tonight. It's also one of the ones that Rachel and I are most proud of. The following data is based on our 2 attendance estimations. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to see what the value of this event and the tourism program are at this specific time. So again, we're working off of the 8,000 to 10,000 in population. We then took that survey data and we pulled out, as Mayor Kavanaugh mentioned, those who had indicated coming from out of town. So we pulled out anyone who noted being a resident. Of that percentage of the event population, 37% indicated spending $50 or more. That then, based on the 8,000 to 10,000 attendance population, translated to $81,000 through $101,000 in spending. We then took our second highest noted dollar amount, which was $35.5, pulled the exact same data where we only looked at new money, new visitors. 33% indicated spending that dollar amount, which then translates to $51,000 to $64,000. All in all, between the 2 highest spending amounts, it's worth $132,000.
And that's only for people who were not residents?
Correct.
Okay, so that plus what we can figure residents spent.
Absolutely. I do want to note that this also is not just in-gate spending, I'll call it. So it wasn't just the food trucks or anything within the event. We asked people very specifically as well, part of the survey is if they're going to eat in town and if so, where. Many noted are many cornerstone restaurants along with event eating. I think we'll pause for just a moment. I know that was a meatier topic before we move into our second point. Is there anything we can answer?
Any questions? No?
Excellent job tabulating metrics. This is tremendous.
Thank you.
I would throw out just for, if you find it some benchmark you could compare it to because your numbers are incredible. So just saying out, 50,000 hits for folks who don't do this, is that good? And so everyone knows that's tremendous.
Sure.
And 2 minutes on your website, that's As Nick said, who's in that, sort of in that industry, that's unbelievable. So that's my only suggestion, get some benchmarks. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, nice job. I know last time you were before us, we talked about ROI, so it looks like you're starting to take a closer look at that. So that's awesome. You know, when I was reading through this a couple of days ago, one of the thoughts I had, and this is far-reaching, and I know you guys have more on your plate than you can address, but kind of nice someday to be able to correlate that with our sales tax revenue. You know how we get those quarterly reports, and I'm just wondering if in longitudinal historical data, there may be a way even to take a look at that. So, but nice job, thank you.
Thank you. And there are mechanisms out there, and that's certainly a goal of ours. I think the first step is establishing, as Councilmember Yates stated, is to establish these benchmarks, to then draw all of those comparisons. And we've begun researching many different mechanisms to calculate even further. Those kinds of queries can be built for your municipality personally, to then cater to your demographic and your population. It'll just take a little more time for us to set up a mechanism that is built for us, which in the long run means that we are getting the most accurate data possible that suits our needs and guides us in the most efficient manner.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Yates?
Along the same lines as Councilman Leger just pointed out, just based on the 132,000 estimate with the 2.6%, that's like $3,500 in direct tax revenue. That's not the ripple effect or the multiplier effect, as you all know. And not knowing what that event cost us, but that's an incredible return on investment, I'm sure, because whatever we spent on it, I'm sure that's incredible. So thank you.
All right, we're gonna shift gears. We were pretty zoomed in there on our Fourth at the Fountain program. Now we're gonna zoom out to a 5-year view, so quite a different perspective here. Grace and myself, in conjunction with Mark and Grady, have been working on formalizing what we do. Granted, the tourism program has been in effect now over 2 years, and we've been working towards a number of goals, and this document, this plan, has sort of formalized those and created a roadmap for where we want to go. It's a pretty lengthy document. You guys have a copy of it in your packet. We are not intending to go through it all tonight. We hopefully just want to hit some high points and then answer any questions that you might have. The plan has all of the different elements that you would expect to see in a strategic plan, your vision, your mission. It also looks at some of the statewide economic impacts of the travel industry and tourism, marketing, communications within the industry, as well as trends, both social, cultural, consumer taste, technology, SWOT analysis, a bunch of research that kind of contributes to where we're going and why we're making the choices we are. We are going to highlight the goals and then some of the measurements. So I'm going to actually ask Grace to kind of cover the first 3 goals, kind of hit the high points on those. I will follow up with those, and then we'll take any questions at the end, if that's
okay.
Our goal number 1 for tonight is communication and outreach. Some of these goals are going to look very familiar to you because they are updates that we have brought before during the tourism updates, which we would just like to solidify as how important they are to the tourism program, which is why you'll see a few repeats tonight. But what we are striving to bring forward is outreach in our community with our stakeholders, new programs. We would like to continue to work with policymakers such as yourself, but also with our Arizona Office of Tourism policymakers and people of the industry who we can have very important, very deep conversations with about the direction of not only the industry but our program and what we can bring home to catapult us even further into the future. We're also looking to maintain our presence and be available to the public for those conversations, because our stakeholders are not just our business owners, our restaurants, our hoteliers. They are the people who visit us at special events and who take the time to speak up and have those conversations and engage with us. Goal number 2 is destination and marketing promotion. Among the action steps, this is a cornerstone goal for us. I don't know how many times Rachel and I have preached branding and really having that iconic look that we bring to the valley when we present ourselves as a tourism destination. We will continue with marketing and branding to grow that even further than we have yet. We will create awareness about Fountain Hills to the valley, to the state. We will support our visitor center and work with our Chamber of Commerce. And then we will link events to tourism, as we know how integral they are to each other and to this community. Our third goal for tonight is researching, planning, and measurement. As we just discussed with the economic impact study, that's just our first step into data. And we look to the future as we get even deeper into those numbers and what this program means to the community, but the potential we have to give back and to grow and to understand the industry within our jurisdiction even more. So we'll quantify visits and tourism, and we'll continue to research and refine the data that we find, and also refine the survey that we give out, so we're getting the most useful information that we can. And we'll work on our economic impact studies.
Goal 4 really turns to education, and that includes both within the industry as well as our local community. One of the highlights here would be to maintain the communication and education with our stakeholders. As Grace mentioned, they are a cornerstone and a backbone of our efforts here in town. So it's imperative that we work with them and keep them up to date, as well as developing specific training for them, whether that's for our local nonprofits or it's for our hoteliers or our small business owners or our event planners, but working with them so that they understand how to integrate with our tourism efforts, and we can get the most mileage working together. Increasing training. We work with a number of businesses in town now on how to utilize social media, Yelp, reviews and things like that, TripAdvisor, different things to really help each other out to make sure that everyone understands the power and the value behind them. That also translates into our learning and making sure that our training is up to date by reviewing both other destinations as well as non-tourism related industries and see kind of how they do it, what works for them, and what can we translate to us. Goal 5 is looking at tourism as a product, as a sellable thing. And our efforts here would be to support the new and existing recreation programming here in town, as well as develop tourism experiences that generate repeat visitors. And that's exactly what Grace and I mentioned earlier. We love our new folks, and we want to get them to come back again and again. In that, we also look to develop 3 to 5 niche opportunities where we can really excel and give our visitors an experience that they can't find anywhere else. Lastly, Goal 6 talks about our strategic alliances. Again, this kind of goes back to our stakeholders and developing those key alliances within the industry that is both local here in town as well as regional, working with our different partnerships. To help implement cross-marketing opportunities, working with each other to make sure that we have the biggest presence that we can, and then potentially identifying areas for cost sharing and different options there so that, again, we get the most mileage that we can. So those are our 6 identifiable goals with quite a few number of action steps associated with them. The next kind of factor here would be success and measurability. We have 6 different items here, but really they are kind of a continuation. One of the biggest ones is the community effort, is understanding that the buy-in from our community and the support of our stakeholders here, as we just mentioned. It really is the continuation to educate and involve them and keep everyone up to date on the importance of tourism and the changing trends. A culture of innovation is something that is very near and dear to us as well, to make sure that we continue to innovate and reposition the town as dynamics change, to make sure that we are in the forefront of any trends and things going on in the tourism world. Success factors, as we just talked about, is all in the numbers, is knowing what it is that we're doing and if we're doing it well. It's statistical analysis, it's digital metrics, it's click-throughs, it's likes, it's engagement, it's all of those fun buzzwords, but really putting a value to what those are, because each of those measurements are brushstrokes in the big picture that paint a picture of what tourism is for Fountain Hills. Now, that being said, the other side of that is the quality version, what I call it. So you can paint a picture with numbers and you can really get a sense of what is working, what is not, where we're going. But there is still a value to the story that our customers are telling us, that our visitors are telling us, what they're liking, what they don't like, what they'd like to see more of, and that engagement level to hear their direct feedback, and really applying that to the picture as well to really get a full, well-rounded view. So that would be our regular engagement and customer and stakeholder feedback, using that as a temperature gauge for the program as well. All right, lastly, the timeline for this plan. Ideally would be adopted in 2016 and then applied throughout 2018 through 2020 with regular updates, just as we've been doing on a semi-annual basis, presenting findings, highlighting our challenges and our successes, as well as working through any grant funding, opportunities, all of the items that we sort of just highlighted. In 2020, it would be expected that we would have kind of a review, a benchmark program. What have we accomplished? What have we not? What has changed? Where does this roadmap need to lead in the next 5 years? And then hopefully an adoption of an up-to-date version by 2021. With that, that's a lot of information.
Yeah, I just have one comment. You know, when I go to a lot of meetings, I meet a lot of mayors, and I network with a lot of people, and I used to bring flyers when we had events. I don't have to do that anymore. I was at a lunch today. When I walked in, the first question was, what date is Slide the City again? They already knew about it. They knew it was in September. Where are we going to buy tickets? So the word is out there already. Every place I go, they're asking for. Our events are very popular out there. That's because great. They're really, really good events. And the other thing I want to say is, well, I want to thank the two of you because, you know, you do all of this on weekends, Friday nights, you know, Saturday night when maybe, you know, and you put in a whole lot of staff time above and beyond what you do working, you know, your full day. So I know Grady's always urging you to take some extra time because you go from one event to the next day to the next day. You went from the water bash to the, you know, and it just kept going. So, you know, you got to take a little bit of time for yourself too. So we know how hard you work. So thank you for that.
We're glad to. We enjoy the program, but we're also looking forward to a long weekend this weekend.
Yes, a nice long weekend. So am I.
I think I heard the mayor say I can take a day on Tuesday.
Right.
All right. So
You're welcome to be off on Monday.
Right.
In fact, everybody here.
He's such a generous boss, isn't he? Okay.
All right. Is there any questions about the plan that we can answer? Anything specific?
Any questions?
Just a comment, Mayor. I think all of us have been here since you all started, and you've done a tremendous job. I mean, it's just amazing what the two of you put together. And I know I've talked about ROI, but I do appreciate the quality and quantity and the balance. And frankly, quality sometimes is more important than the quantity piece. And it's so hard to measure ROI in tourism. I mean, it's like, right? I mean, there's people getting PhDs in it, and they still don't understand how to do all of that. But you guys have done a tremendous job. So keep up the good work. And the strategic plan, wow. That's really well done. Thank you.
Anything else? Nick?
I just want to echo exactly what Councilman Leger said. I mean, it's a tremendous lift to be able to add metrics and numbers to things like this to show movement in a lot of directions, and it was really well thought out. And I just agree with my colleagues that you both done an awesome job. Great hires, Mark. If you had anything to do with that, which I'm sure you did. So. Be happy to make a motion.
Okay, you want to see do the video first?
Last but not least, we do want to end on a high note for you. I'm going to let Grace kind of introduce the video, but we did have a little technological challenge here, so we're going to ask that you guys use the iPads and wait for us to say go before you hit the button. So go ahead,
hit
Grace.
the button.
Ladies and gentlemen, council members, the tourism video has been a labor of love. But it's a project that Rachel and I have been excited about for quite some time. You'll find that so many folks with the tourism program have destination videos to invite folks out, and we're over the moon to finally be a part of that group who also has a visual welcome to our town. Now, before we hit play, I would like to take a moment and give a very heartfelt, so sincere, we truly could not have done it without all of the players who came together to make this video. You'll see that there are cameos of several staff members in the video, kind-hearted souls who came together in lieu of models. I've been told Parks and Rec is a very good-looking group.
Somebody's kids got talked into it.
There may have been ice cream bribery, but I'm told Parks and Rec is a good-looking group. We have staff members who came together who appear in the video to make it happen. We also had participation from McDowell Mountain Cycles, Euro Pizza, the folks at Fort McDowell, Segway Tours. I mean, truly this was a community effort, and without them, we wouldn't have something that we are so proud of. So with that being said, I am going to lower my screen to the video, and if you folks would hold on with me, we'll count down 3, 2, 1, and I'll hit play together.
I'm just going to add that the reason you guys are watching it on an iPad versus the rest of us watching on the screen is that you're getting the HD version, the high-def version, that gets a little bit muted through our technology here. So we really wanted you guys to see sort of the wow moment. And then we will also send you a link. We'll be sending out an email with a link to this so that you can share it as well.
Okay, we're ready.
Mayor, can I make a suggestion about the sharing link? Can you make it easy for the social media challenged amongst us that say post this with this link?
Yep.
Thank you.
We will make it easy peasy.
Jargon.
Right. All right, with that.
Ladies and gentlemen, on my count, let's enjoy something fabulous. We'll hit play in 3, 2, and 1.
Awesome.
Digging the tagline.
That is really great.
If there are no other questions or comments, we want to thank you very much.
Tremendous.
We can't compliment you as much as we would like to. There's no words to say how much we appreciate everything you've done and how impressed we are with the work. Thank you.
Do we need
Yeah.
a motion?
Yes, we will need a motion for the strategic plan part, consideration of the tourism strategic plan. We don't have any speaker cards on this? Nobody's left. Well, look, we have a few, and Pastor David, hang in there with us. Okay.
Move to approve.
Motion. Thank you. Go ahead.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor,
That's it.
4-0.
Okay. All right, we have no direction to council. But I do have, as I delayed from last time, I do have activities, and you guys, I know you've got something to say too. So you can just jump in there. First, I want to thank Vice Mayor DePorter for giving all the staff the great presentation on LinkedIn. We all learned a lot from that. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you for your time in doing that. I also represented the town at the opening night of the Fountain Hills Community Theater. Senator Kavanaugh and I attended the first meeting of the newly formed Marine Corps League at the American Legion. We're a very pro-veteran town, and that's another group that started. I want to talk about the back-to-school water pash at Four Peaks Neighborhood Park, where Councilman DePorter was able to walk there. Councilman Yates and Vice Mayor DePorter were there with me. It was a hugely successful event. We expected about 200, but we easily got 400 families to attend. We hope to make this free event an annual one, and I want to thank, they left, but Rachel again, Grace, Angelica, and Corey, who was our incredible DJ. I also want to thank the sponsors who helped pay for this, the Fountain Hills Coalition, Thrivent Financial, and the school. Also, we had a ribbon cutting for the opening of the renovations of our dog park. Councilman Yates and Vice Mayor DePorter were also on hand to help cut the ribbon, along with Town Manager Grady Miller, Community Services Director Mark Mayer, Senator Kavanaugh was there. The president of ADOG, John Thompson, spoke to thank his group for all their hard work and commended the town, especially our park supervisor, Kevin Snipes, for the great job he's done with the renovations. Grady and I attended a ceremony at Fort McDowell with our school superintendent, Dr. Patrick Sweeney, to accept the 202 donations from the tribe. We thank the Tribal Council and President Bernadine Burnett for the generous donation to the town and to the school. And then I wanted to mention about the League of Cities and Towns Conference. Councilman Yates, Vice Mayor DePorter, and Town Manager Grady Miller and I attended. It was an excellent conference. We all went to different seminars in order to leverage how much we could learn to bring back. I know I attended one on the consequences of the legalization of marijuana, and also a very interesting one on new housing trends. I learned from that Park Place is the type of building that's not only going on here in Arizona, but across the country. Downsizing into smaller units is the new norm for retired people, and apartments are the new attraction for young people. I also attended one on the new use of body cameras by the police departments, especially since our MCSO deputies are using them. I also networked with other mayors, legislators, and our service companies, EPCOR, SRP, Republic Services. My Mayor's Youth Council once again attended, and thank you, Grady, for letting them do that. They attended with the youth coordinator, Heather Ware. They proudly carried our town flag in the opening ceremony of the Parade of Flags. They then went, they spent the rest of the day with the other youth groups in seminars and activities. Fountain Hills then took part in the showcase. That was fun, which culminates the conference. Each city has a booth where they give a little trinket away representing their town. And again, I want to thank Rachel, Grace, Heather, and Ken Valverde, who did a fabulous backdrop for it, for all their hard work to make our booth more attractive and fun. Grady, Cecil, Nick, and I took shifts and helped out at the booth. We were all very proud to showcase our town. And I'll just open it up at this point if you guys want to say anything about the league or anything you wanted to mention. If I did not ride the bull, no. I was tempted. I tried to get these guys to do it. They didn't either.
The one session that stuck out for me was, I forgot what it was titled, but it was doing economic development on a small town budget or something like that. And it was just nice to hear that our town economic development director, Scott, I mean, he's checking off all the boxes and best practices that they discussed in there. And I feel like we knew he was doing a great job, but it was just benchmarking against others that are doing it. He's really taking us to where we need to be. So it's a good session.
Okay, did you want to add
Just
anything?
that final session, all the people that we had coming by the booth, everyone said just wonderful things about Fountain Hills.
Mhm.
We were giving away Chocofin chocolate bars, and everybody was a winner. We really had a
That
lot
was
of
fun.
fun do that. So
Yeah, it was.
It was a hoot.
Okay, and then I just wanted to thank Councilman Yates for the ribbon cutting. You want to say something about the ribbon cutting? You represented us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
Angela McGee moved here from New Jersey about a year ago and loved Fountain Hills so much, decided to open a business. She's an Avon rep and had a district that she could purchase, and she's open for business. And go online and you could see her. And Avon, and it's not necessarily my products, but they now have shoes and clothes and on top of all the other products. So.
Yeah, it's great to have another business
Yeah,
in
that's
town. And last, I just want to congratulate Councilman Yates and Councilman Brown, who couldn't be here today, on your reelection.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's
Appreciate
it. Okay, and I think that's it. So, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hey, thank you, everybody who hung in with us.